All right, everybody, here we go. Today is Tuesday, June 16th, 2026. My name is Rob Carter. Welcome to the future. Number one radio / podcast in America. I was on the phone. Isaiah, good morning, by the way. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, America.
Good morning, Donna. Good morning, John. Good morning. I can't say everybody's got they got handles and I don't know their names. I was on the phone for about an hour yesterday, Isaiah, with Dr. Shiva. He's going to
Nice.
come on the show hopefully this week. He's in court today to explain he won some form of court case to where he could explain to the people in Massachusetts how elections are being stolen. We're going to have a guy by the name of Chris Gleason on the show today at 10. I met him. I went down to Florida. The former Speaker of the House, a guy by the name of Paul Renner, is running for governor down there. So they want me to be familiar with this campaign, and Vandersteel is pushing him very hard. So I went down and checked out kind of a kickoff campaign in the area for Paul Renner. Again, he's running for governor of Florida. And Chris Gleason spoke. And when he started to speak about how the elections are being rigged around the country, it just resonated with me because I know the elections are being manipulated. I'm just positive of it. Just common sense would tell you these people they're criminals. That's why I said that. Title of the show today, DC is a criminal mafia. You can't get rid of them. They rig everything. They rig the primaries. They finance the candidates that they want to make sure they can control the corporate power. And you're not getting representative government. That's why I always play. Let me just start there today, because if people don't believe me, one of our very favorite guys is Bryant Wolfen. I got to remind everybody continually let me find it here.
It's a great clip.
All over the place. All right, so here is this is an interview that Jake Jackson did with Bryant Wolfen, and listen to what he says. This is not me saying it. This is not some podcast.
Who's Bryant Wolfen for the listeners who aren't from Missouri?
He's my favorite rep, House rep in the Missouri government. He is somebody who adheres to the Constitution, communicates. He's somebody we're endorsing. We want Bryant Wolfen to win. I don't think the establishment, but they like him. He's such a likable guy. You cannot like Bryant Wolfen. But he did an interview with Jake Jackson, and he tells us what we already know. It's just that, you can't get a lot of people, and I can't give you the percentages, but you can't get certain people to recognize that this is real. This is real. Our elections are being manipulated. Even when they're not manipulated, when you get into a position of power in the government, whether it be a House or Senate seat, you can't get anything done because it's controlled by three people: the Senate pro tem, the Speaker of the House, and the governor. Everybody else is cute. They dress nice. They say nice things. They put forth cute little legislation, but it means nothing because those three people have all of the power, and that is being controlled. Obviously, in my opinion, I get so frustrated trying to argue with people about this. It's so obviously being controlled that everything else is theatrics. Exactly what Thomas Massey is telling us, right? And it starts with the elections. Why would you think that people that stick needles in your arm, leave your borders wide open, and control your media would not control the elections? Because once you start to push back, they go, well, who cares? We run the elections anyway. So we'll get our guy or gal in there regardless of what you do. Chris Gleason's going to explain it to us. But if you don't believe me, let me play this clip. This is from our favorite rep in the Missouri House, Bryant Wolfen, explaining it to Jake Jackson in a People's Lobby Missouri interview. Check it out.
When we don't have a say, your representative, so like the people of the People's Lobby, like your representative doesn't really have a say in this building. They're not representing you.
That's true.
It's just we just can't. We can't. Let me rephrase that. We can't represent you first. You can't be our number one priority. We have to do other things first and then be able to represent you and have a say for that. We don't have an actual discussion in these big bills. Now, there may be small committees that could be formed, but in the end, we don't get to have those discussions. And obviously, if you dissent like I do often, you're never going to be a part of those conversations.
It's that simple. And Bryant Wolfen's not a liar. Bryant Wolfen is somebody who follows the Constitution in the state of Missouri, and he's honest. And I think that's why people like him. Mike Moon is the same way. You do not have a say in your government anymore. We are not a republic. We're not free people. We're only free in the sense that we have a constitution that guides our consciousness. We know that we have freedom of speech. We know that we can carry a gun. We know that we have certain constitutional protections, and that gives us a mental freedom but it's not real. If the government wants to take you down, though, ask Jeff Winehouse if the government can take you down.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't know who Jeff Winehouse is, or you're around the country, I talk about him all the time. Jeff Winehouse does what I do. He's an independent journalist who is going after power in the state of Missouri. They drug him out into the middle of nowhere at a filling station, and a highway patrolman shot him 4 times in the chest, 2 times in the chest, 2 times in the forehead. He videotaped the thing with a spy watch. He sits in prison for 30 years for shooting a cop, never shot anybody. They shot him. They set him up to kill him. They just didn't get the job done because the guy shot him twice in the forehead, and he's kind of like Charlie Kirk with a forehead of steel. He lives, and then they put him in prison for 30 years right here in Missouri. And when you tell the Republican Party, hey, listen, man, you got a guy in prison here that did nothing wrong other than, try to report news to people, did everything by the book, legal. Did he threaten you guys? Yeah, but was it legal? According to the FBI, it was legal. So what he did was legal. You shot him 4 times for something he didn't do. And now he sits in prison for 30 years. Does that sound like justice to you? Does that sound like a government that's working for the people, an independent journalist sitting in prison for 30 years for being shot 4 times? I mean, we have to get it together here. This is a criminal organization, and it's a criminal organization in the sense that they control everything, and it's not a free society. It's only, as George Carlin used to say, the illusion of freedom. We've got to get that message out far and wide, and we have to understand it. It's not that you could be happy in North Korea. You think that you think there's a segment of the population in North Korea that isn't happy? You have people in prisons that are happy. You can be happy at any point in your life. I'm a happy person, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stick my head in the sand and act like these things aren't going on, right? I had a great time yesterday, by the way, Isaiah. We went to the Cardinal game last night.
Oh, yeah.
And
got my Cardinals tumbler here.
What a great night. Me and my son went, bought tickets late. Just
perfect
FYI.
Weather, by the way.
It was spectacular. So I come in, I went down and saw a buddy of mine down in St. Louis, and he had jerseys for my family. So he handed me a bunch of Cardinals jerseys. So my son gets home last night. I've got the jerseys with me. And I said, you want to go to the Cardinal game? Maybe we should go to the Cardinal game. We hadn't even thought about it. He goes, you know what? Let me check it out. So he goes online to check out the seats. Right. So right behind home plate is normally very expensive, couple, $300-400 for a seat.
Oh, not right now.
Right. Not right now. Exactly. But even online, it said $60-something. Tanner was able to buy him for $45. So we sat right behind home plate for $45. Beautiful evening. And then we see May pitch a 1-hitter and the Cardinals win 3-0. But it was fantastic. Anyway, my point is you can be happy. Isaiah, you're a happy guy, right? Does that mean not paying
attention? That's my number one compliment I get from people is that they the reason they want to be around me is because I'm so positive and happy all the time.
Exactly. And so am I. Right. But that doesn't mean you can't be critical of your government. I think that's the duty of citizens. And, there's another thing, talking to Dr. Shiva last night, talking about how you get algorithms. By the way, Isaiah, here's a guy with 4 degrees from MIT. And he said, well, of course you get algorithm. He goes, Rob, if you're speaking about Israel, the elections, you are going to be algorithmed. And that's just the end of it. And he basically said how it works. I mean, he walked me through it like an engineer.
Yep.
He said it's what do you call it? Targeted censorship. He goes, it's targeted censorship. Once you get on their list, they say, okay, Rob's going to go out to X amount of people, and that's the end of it.
Yep.
Doesn't mean you can't work around it like we did with the clips, right?
Exactly.
They are going to, when you try to share it, when you try to do these things, it limits the reach that you have. Fact, according to him. And I think a guy with 4 degrees from MIT might understand how the system works. Here's a guy that when I started following him, Isaiah, he had, I think it was 1.2 or 1.5. I keep getting those two numbers mixed up. 1.2 or 1.5 million followers on X. Now he's down to 300,000. And when he posts something on X, he gets less than 1,000 views.
I'm so surprised he hasn't started like a Signal or a Telegram community. That's what a lot of people do who are really suppressed. So they have like a Telegram channel.
Yep.
And then they send out when they post, and then they've got, they might have 1 million followers on X, but maybe 100 or 200,000 people in that Telegram chat. And then they go out there and, within 5 minutes, it's got, 1,000, 2,000 likes, and that can trick the algorithm. You know what I mean?
We should figure out how to work around these algorithms in other areas.
That's one way people do it, is essentially getting it out so that the engagement is so much that the algorithm has no choice but to show it to so many people because of the engagement that it's getting.
Right.
And so that's how you can trick it.
Do you think
it's hard?
Do you think when our thumbnail said DC is a criminal mafia that we might get algorithm just a little bit?
Yeah, maybe there's probably an intern. There's an FBI intern working for X. You know what I mean? Or a CIA intern that's over there. Like, oh wait, we gotta suppress this quickly.
Right. Well, the great thing is if people can find us. That's the difference between what we're doing now is it isn't as shareable, right? You can't spread it like you normally would like to do. And we do say like and share, by the way. Please, if you don't mind, like, share, comment. As many comments and likes and shares as you get, the more information we can get out there regardless. We'll work around all of these things, but it is what it is. We have a criminal government
for us.
We have a criminal government that won't address it, Isaiah. That's there's all kinds of tells, right? When you play poker with somebody, there's tells, right? People scratch their head when they have a good hand, or they their eyes look up and around when they have a good hand, or your body language gives things away in poker. When you're looking at politics, there's obvious tells as to the way the government works. If both parties tell you the elections are rigged, and then you can't even pass the SAVE Act, which says only American citizens can vote, what does that tell the American citizen? What does that tell them? Right?
Well, now Trump's tying the FISA to the Save America Act,
which was predicted a long time ago, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what people were saying was going to happen, is that, if they vote it down, he's going to tie it to that. So we have no choice but to pass it. Yeah. And then you got the leadership coming out and crying about it, like Mike Johnson, like we saw yesterday.
Mike Johnson.
This is terrible.
What do you do about a criminal government? How do you address a government that does not pay attention to its people? And that's at the state.
I think what Massey told us is like the best thing that we can do. What they do is what we can do, and that's spend more money on a campaign. Because that's what he said. He said, hey, if the machines are working and they're not rigged, they'll just spend a bunch of money and still win the campaign.
You see Dana in the comments. Dana Bowers, she's been very popular in Franklin County. She says it is this way at every level of government we have right now, and she's right in the thick of it. I don't know if Dana knew that. Dana, I don't know if you knew that going in. I did not know that going in. I did not know that going in. As I started paying attention to government, I started to realize, well, wait a minute. Everything that you should be a layup.
Yeah.
Everything that's a 2-foot putt, everything that's easy that would gain the confidence of citizens, you can't get done. So how's that a government of buying for the people? It's right now it's going on with AI data centers. That's where Dana's at. She's trying to stop these AI data center developments. And we'll have Rick Babbitt's on the show at 11 today as well. So if you want to talk finances, he's got some information about AI data centers. He thinks it's just a scam. I'll let him explain it, but he's a brilliant guy. And he said, I've been looking into these AI data centers, and it's just a scam. And it might be a financial scam. You know what I'm saying? It might just be more than a financial scam.
Yeah.
Because billions of dollars are going into them and nobody wants them. And the government said, you know what? You don't want these? Open up your mouth and let me shove these down your throat. They don't care if you want them or not. They don't care at all.
Right at the same time, we have the fusion, right? Alex Jones has been using that word, the fusion of the intelligence agencies between Israel and America.
They've always been
simultaneously. We need to.
Is he saying that now?
Yeah.
No, Isaiah, just so everybody remembers, it's not a bragging. I don't mean to come off that way, but I want to give my own credibility a little lift, if you don't mind. If you've been listening for the show long enough, how long have I been saying that?
Yeah.
The coordination between the United States and Israel is through the intelligence agencies and the banks. That's it.
Now it's formalized.
Right? It's not, and they want to formalize it. People are starting to get wise to what's happening. Now they want to formalize it. That's why you see this legislation that protects Israel, because Israel is a proxy of our intelligence agencies. If Israel creates all of the problems that our government, our intelligence agencies, and our military come to fix. And what happens in that scenario? Well, they all make a ton of money. If I can create war, it keeps the military engine running, right? Then I have the reconstruction. Look what they're doing in Iran right now. In Iran right now, they're supposedly a peace deal. And we have $300 billion we're going to give to Iran. 300. And it's maddening because it's so obvious. But again,
I like this headline from the Drudge Report. Trump makes Iran great again.
Yeah. It's depressing. All right, let me get some advertising in very quickly. Let me start with Slap Happy, my man, John Grady. We're talking
People's Lobby.
Oh, people. You get mad at me every time I do that.
You cannot forget.
peopleslobbymo.com. So I was talking to our group. We're just kind of texting back and forth with our group, kind of the insiders at People's Lobby, Missouri. I think what we're going to do is in the middle of July, and you can pop up the website if you don't mind, with peopleslobbymo.com. So if you want to if you want to join our movement, I think I might align ultimately with Dr. Shiva, because Dr. Shiva is like, Rob, if you're trying to advocate for something, he goes, the reason, when people say, Tucker Carlson speaks out against Israel and he gets millions of views, and Candace Owens gets millions of views and she's speaking out against Israel. He said, you get algorithmed when you try to change things, talking about them endlessly, going out on your podcast and pointing them out. They're fine with that because that keeps everything within the bubble. He goes, but if you say, okay, we're going to make some changes, we're going to organize, we're going to make a difference, we're going to change the game, we're going to create a movement. He goes, that's when they take care of you. That's when you get yourself into a position where the government doesn't want you to spread information. He was going off on Elon Musk yesterday. He said this, he basically said that everybody, that even the people that you think are good, even Massey, he said, he goes, all of these people are in the same game together. He goes, all they do, he was talking about politicians. He goes, they're trying to raise money for what? Their campaigns to fix a system they know they can't do anything in. He goes, he's talking about Thomas Massey. He goes, and I'm not bad mouthing Thomas Massey. I like Thomas Massey. And some of these people may not know. That's the other thing I say, you may just know what you know. You might not look at it from a different angle. But he said Thomas Massey, he goes, going to raise money for his campaign. I think he raised $10 million in Kentucky. He goes, but is he organizing you, or is he organizing you to give him money so that he can fix a system that he's been in for 12 years that he can't do anything about? And I said, it's a good point. That's the point that he's been making for a long time. If you try to organize people like we do with People's Lobby Missouri, like the Shield Maidens, like Act for Missouri, the Missouri grassroots organizations, if you try to organize people, then you're going to get squashed. And then you have to do all of these end arounds, right? All of these maneuvers to try and get your message out there. And I just think it's a fact. If you'd like to join peopleslobbymo.com, you can check out our website. We love donations. The more money we get, the more we can advertise, and we can advertise in multiple different ways. We can organize, we can do billboards, we can do television commercials, we can do social media commercials, we can advertise for People's Lobby Missouri. And then when we want to have a protest, a rally, a letter writing campaign, whatever we need to do, we can do it, because and this is another thing Dr. Shiva said, Isaiah, I think you'll like this. Once everybody understands what's happening, he goes, what you're fighting for is consciousness. That's what he told me last night. He goes, everybody's looking to do organizational things. And he goes, and that's all fine. He goes, I look at everything as an engineer. He said, but what ultimately changes the day is consciousness of what is happening begins to change. And therefore, once consciousness changes, and once people go, I'm looking at theater on my television set, and everybody starts to see it that way. When you see the incredible corruption and malfeasance that goes on in government, and all governments are corrupt, don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about just an incredible amount of corruption, sticking needles in your arm, leaving your borders open, the Smith Modernization Act so we can sell domestic propaganda to our citizens, on and on and on. The consolidation of, that's why we had Dr. Helen Gellhardt on yesterday. The consolidation of even our medical industry, through wasn't Donald Trump going to get rid of it? I say, wasn't he going to get rid of Obamacare? I thought that was one of the things he ran in 2016. Well, it's not gone yet. It was still around. All of these things.
I will say they did lower prescription costs a lot.
There are things that are good. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to say that everything is bad.
No.
Everything.
That was just something I was really surprised by. I was like, man, these are actually very low prices that they did with the Trump RX stuff.
If everything was bad, you would rise up. So there has to be good. There has to be bread and circus. Look at the UFC fights.
We'd be storming the UFC fights if everything was bad, right?
What did you think of? Did you get to watch any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my buddy, and I said, he said, man, there was this opening scene where one of the fighters, the walk up, they're filming them as they're walking, right?
Yep.
He's reading the Declaration of Independence in the Oval Office, and he walks out to the octagon. And I was like, oh, that's pretty badass, but also it might be a little disgraceful, and that's what my buddy said too. He's like, yeah, I feel like it's like if you did a UFC event at the Vatican, He's like, not that it's, he's like, I know religious is different than political, but he's like, I don't know, there's just something about, the White House that I don't want that happening. And so I told him I haven't looked this up yet, but I'm like, you know what? I'm curious if there's any president that's ever held a sporting event on the White House lawn before. Maybe there was a polo game or something like that. I don't know if this is something that past presidents have done, or if this is just something brand new that Trump came up with.
I'm unaware of anything like that.
Me too. That's what I'm saying. I couldn't think of anything, but I said I got to look it up at least, do my research.
Was there anything?
I haven't done it yet. I need to. I had my board meeting yesterday, so I was.
Yeah, you were busy all day. I look at it like this. I went to my son. He went over to his buddy's house. I went with him. It's the kids that played baseball with me when I was coaching these kids growing up. One of them's a professional race car driver, and all their friends were there, and they were just locked on this fight. They loved it, and it just it reminds me of Rome. It's the kind of the stories you hear about Rome, bread and circus. So it is entertaining, and it does bring joy to a lot of people. If you're a UFC fan, that was a big event for you. You couldn't wait to see it. They had great fighters on the card.
Yeah, Michael Chandler is a friend of, he comes to our church every once in a while.
High Ridge, right?
Yeah. He's we've got to film with him at the church that I worked with before and stuff. And so great guy.
Is he really?
Yeah. Great guy.
He got knocked out, didn't he?
I believe so.
He got knocked out. I was watching.
How about the guy that said Michelle Obama is a man?
Yeah. See, for me, I saw people putting that all over social media.
It was crazy. I was like, what?
I don't know. The whole thing for me is I get it. It's fine. I enjoyed it. Does it need to be on the White House lawn? I guess that's the question. Can it be sanctioned by, can Donald Trump promote it and these kind of things as a citizen of this country, of course.
Yeah. But Biden did worse.
Well, they're the same thing.
Biden had a bunch of gay people and trans people on the front lawn. And so it's that's worse.
That's always the comparison, right, Isaiah?
I know. That's what they want, though. They want us to compare and say, oh, well, we're better than the Democrats, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That is the ruse, if you will. All right.
We're not as bad, at least, right?
We're not as bad.
Slap Happy Hemp.
SlapHappyHemp.com. This is my friend John Grady. He's running for a House seat. And I like John because he had his hemp farm taken away from him. He's a military veteran, and they basically taken his business from him. He's going to, reorganize and bring his business back to life, but it won't be hemp because they're taking his hemp business away from him.
He was explaining they have to do some type of. I went and saw him. I didn't even get to talk to you about that. I went when I was going to Columbia for the conference. I was able to stop by, and he walked me through everything. And I guess they have to use these isolates now, basically, instead. And he said he has to get everything from China. Can you believe that?
Shocker.
Forced to now.
You gotta go check out his place, though, because I'll tell you what, if you want to have a great drive and enjoy yourself, if you're from the surrounding area of St. Louis County, St. Charles County, Franklin County, and you want to drive out to Rosebud, to be honest with you, I love the drive out there. I had just it was a beautiful day. I drove out there. He's got a little porch out there where you can have a drink, smoke a cigar, and he's got hemp products that he has to get rid of. So if you want a great deal, he says, come in now and stock up on your favorite hemp products before Missouri makes them illegal this November. Our loss is your gain, with prices dropping now through November 12th. So if you are somebody who uses hemp products, SlapHappyHemp.com is the place to go out in Rosebud, Missouri. Check it out. Great guy.
You ever post that video that I sent you?
Which one?
The video I texted you with me and him.
Did I post it? No, I saw it though.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah, I texted you to post it on Facebook.
I didn't post it. I don't think I did anyway. I don't even know what day it is. What are you talking about?
When I was with John.
Are you are you looking for it?
Well, it was a promo for him.
Oh yeah. SlapHappyHemp.com. John Grady, good dude, trying to do the right thing in the state of Missouri. He's causing some problems too, Isaiah. He's challenging all of these people within the Republican establishment for debates and conversations. And from what I can tell, nobody really wants to jump in and do it, which I find, again, very telling as to what is going on in the country. If you want to help John out, if you are a hemp product person, you'll be able to get a great deal. SlapHappyHemp.com. He is on Highway 50 in Rosebud. Check it out. John Grady, SlapHappyHemp.com. Highway 50 in Rosebud. And there you can check out his website again. All of the hemp products that he's selling they're going to go down in price. And then in November, he is going to start a new business, and we'll start talking about his new business when we get there. SlapHappyHemp.com. John Grady, good dude, running for office here in the state of Missouri. He will get our endorsement. We're going to do an endorsement. I was going to tell you about People's Lobby Mo. So I was talking with our group last night. We'll do our endorsements probably mid-July. And I'll just say this. There cannot be, and I mean this sincerely, There cannot be a more coveted endorsement than ours because I am so critical of government. I don't even like to play the game of government. So we'll ask all of these candidates, on a, either on the show or we'll do a live stream at our event. And we're going to say, listen, these are the things that are of importance to People's Lobby Mo. Are these things that you will do when you get into office? And if the answer is yes, we're going to have them on tape because I don't necessarily trust anybody anymore, Isaiah. That's kind of how I look at it. And once they get into office, we're going to hold their feet to the fire. And if they want that, great. If they don't, we'll say, listen, they didn't want to do it. So
Did you see what James Fishback did?
Make your own decision. About Byron Donalds?
No, he went and signed a legally binding contract that if he breaks one of his promises, I don't know what the repercussions are, but essentially he created a legally binding contract that holds him accountable to keep his promises as governor. And I thought that was really interesting.
I do like it. I think he knows the elections are rigged down in Florida. I think he knows that Byron Donalds is going to win that race, and Byron Donalds won't debate. James Fishback is running around with a what's it called, a megaphone?
I know.
with a bullhorn, saying, why won't you debate? Why won't you debate? And what's funny is when Byron Donalds was running, he was complaining that people wouldn't debate.
Yeah.
And now that he's in a position, he doesn't have to debate. It is quite crazy. JonesWater.com. I'm checking out Everett a little bit later on today. JonesWater.com. JonesWater.com. Again, if you are drinking tap water in today's world, I can't even imagine drinking tap water today. You cannot be drinking tap water in this world. You are going to ultimately have all kinds of little ailments if you're drinking that funk that is in the water. You must get a water purification system for your home and business. You got to do it. And if you got to do it, you might as well do it with one of ours, JonesWater.com. 636-899-1040. 636-899-1040. You'll be the filter or you'll buy the filter. And the reason air filtration is so important, as he explained it to me, and this is the best example I can give to people because I think it resonates. It puts a picture in your mind. When you are in darkness in your home and you open up the curtains and you see all that stuff floating around in the air, that's why he says you'll be the filter or you'll buy the filter. That's going into your lungs and on your skin and through your nostrils, and it sits there. And if you are somebody that doesn't have an incredible immune system, eventually you're going to get respiratory problems. You're going to get a sinus infection. You're going to get a little bit of a cold. You're going to get a bit of a flu. Why not protect yourself? It's the best money you can spend is to protect your family with fresh air and clean water. I mean, I don't know what, it just seems like an easy one for me. I suggest you check out JonesWater.com. 636-899-1040. 636-899-1040. He's been around since 1995. If you want to do business with Everett Jones on the Missouri side, it's St. Charles County, Lincoln, Franklin, Warren, St. Louis, and Jefferson. If you go to the east side, Madison, Monroe, Jersey, and St. Clair. JonesWater.com. JonesWater.com. 636-899-1040. And then let's also talk about ECS. He gave me this, Isaiah. So this is my little
Oh, very nice.
From a man, Larry Evans. I was talking to him about the roofing business the other day. I want to have him on. He goes, Rob, he goes, I don't know what he say. He goes, I don't know if I want to, if I have the face to get on there. I said, man, you got to come on and just explain the roofing business. I think people are interested in businesses and how they run and operate. It's always been something that I like. When I get into any kind of business, I want to understand how it works and who the good ones are, who the bad ones are, why, everything. I was with a guy that does home restoration yesterday. He's the one that gave me the jerseys, and he started explaining the home restoration business. And there's so many different angles and avenues to home restoration and how the big guys buy off all these insurance adjusters and everything. It's just fascinating how the whole thing works. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. Check them out on Facebook. I think he's going to get a website going here before too terribly long. Specializes in roofing, and they do things the right way. Been around for 30 years. They also are our contractor here at the Rob Carter Show. He does siding, decks, gutters, garage doors, custom exterior metal, residential or commercial, doesn't matter to him. New construction, storm damage, free licensed inspections. And the key to his business, the thing that separates him from all of the other roofers, is he is a licensed independent insurance adjuster. So when he looks at your roof, he knows whether the insurance companies are going to work with you or not. He's different than the guys that knock on doors. He doesn't like the guys that knock on doors. He thinks that is shady. But they'll knock on the door. They'll say, hey, we saw your siding. We saw your roof. We think we can get your roof replaced with the insurance companies. They don't have any idea whether the insurance companies are going to work with you or not. They just want to get you in their system. They want to create the conversation. They want your information, and that's how they work. It's a scam. On the other hand, if you call ECS Roofing because you had a hailstorm or wind damage to your roof, he can come out there and say, absolutely, insurance is going to take care of this. I'll work with you to get it done. Honest, reputable, been around for 30 years. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. You can reach him at 314-486-3567. 314-486-3567. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. You can check them out on Facebook as well if you want to see their work. All right, Isaiah, we got what do we got? About 34 minutes before we bring on Chris Gleason. A couple things I wanted to address today. Let me start with this Iran deal. You know, we talk all the time about what's going on with Israel, Iran, the United States, the Middle East, and you know my opinion on it. I think what's going on is a collaboration between the intelligence agencies, Israel and the United States. I think they create war. And if you're okay with your country creating war, I would ask you why that's okay. We don't really need to be creating war all over the world, but we do. And then they create war, and now Donald Trump and Donald Trump supporters. I find this another thing that's interesting too. Don't let me forget to bring up Doug Billings, Isaiah. Can you just make a little? I like
Billings.
I'm not a Doug hater. I mean, he fights with me back and forth on social media, but I like Doug. I think he's a good dude, and I think he's incredibly talented. So I like Doug. I disagree with him completely, but I think he comes from the right spot. I think that Doug believes everything that he's saying. I just happen to disagree with him. I'll just leave that there. But I want to come back to that in just a minute. Okay. So here is the Iran deal. Can you go to Grok, Isaiah? Can you bring it up on your screen maybe and go to Grok and say what is the agreement between the U.S. and Iran in the most recent deal that we've made? Because you know when you look at this, we bombed a sovereign country. Okay, whether you like Iran, whether you think Hezbollah, or whether you think the Ayatollah, or you think Iran is just the worst government, the worst people in history, whatever you believe, they are a sovereign nation. Our country, under our Constitution, we're not supposed to be bombing countries without congressional approval, but we do all the time. And they set precedent, right? This is how they work it. I used to call it, Isaiah, the hypocrisy game. The hypocrisy game works is if the Democrats do it, then the Republicans can do it. And if the Republicans do it, then the Democrats can do it.
Of course.
They're the same team. That's how this is how we do. That's how they do it. That's how they do. That's how they trick everybody. That's the ruse. If the Republicans do it, then the Democrats go, well, we can do it if the Republicans did it, and vice versa. This is how the system works. And then they talk about precedent. If the court said it was okay, which you remember the Supreme Court is who puts the people on the Supreme Court, Isaiah? Presidents.
Yep.
So if you have a corrupt political system, wouldn't it just make sense that you're going to have a corrupt judicial system? I mean, are people that just, good Lord. You're supposed
to
the
illusion that we have the separate branches, right?
Everything is together.
We got the executive, the legislative, the judicial branch, and they're all there to hold each other accountable, right? And it's like, wait, how do you hold accountable when the executive branch appoints the judicial branch?
It's the greatest con and the greatest scheme ever devised, because once you have the Constitution, it becomes the citizens' duty to make sure that the government adheres to the Constitution. But as you get richer as a country, as you get more wealthy, as you get more, you feel good about life. You can eat. You got a roof over your head. You begin to get lazy. That's why all countries fail. And under our Constitution, we're supposed to make sure that our government adheres to the Constitution for our own protections. So what do? They go, you know what? Let's figure out how we can work around this Constitution to do the things that we want to do, because we as a government become an entity. We become a business. I call it Missouri Inc., right here in Missouri. If you take DC, it's the same thing. And they usurp the Constitution through all of these different methods. And then you wake up one day and you have kind of a shredded Constitution, and the Constitution lives in your mind, but it doesn't live in reality. Again, I say, ask Jeffrey Weinstein if the Constitution means anything, or if he has a proper judicial system, right? So we see those little holes, and it's our duty to make sure that our government adheres to the Constitution, which they don't. Okay. So I want to start here. This is, it's clip number 2. And
you want to see the Grok?
Yes, let's do that. Let's do this first. Can you blow that up a little bit, because I can't see it, or maybe just read just a little bit. Read the deal that we just made with Iran, and let me just carve this thing up for people.
So the key terms of the deal: first, immediate/extended ceasefire. So it says halt to hostilities on all fronts, explicitly including Lebanon, per Iran and Pakistan. Which is funny because Israel bombed Lebanon. So
right after the deal yesterday.
Right after the deal. Yep. Second is Strait of Hormuz, reopening to commercial shipping. This lifts Iran's closure in the U.S. naval blockade, which I've heard reports that has happened, and there's more traffic flowing through the strait. So something is, that is happening. 60-day negotiation window. This one was interesting. Time for deeper talks on Iran's nuclear program.
Time for deeper talks. Okay.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
So that's why this isn't a full deal. This is just a memorandum of understanding, just so everyone has a true understanding.
This is nothing, is what this is.
Yeah. That's why we have the 60-day negotiation window here. But that's just to go over, I guess, essentially what can they still enrich with uranium and things like that. That's my understanding. And it says other elements, discussions on regional de-escalation, no immediate large U.S. cash payouts. Trump emphasized this, potential broader sanction waivers tied to nuclear steps. Funny that he says that, because we are going to rebuild Iran, even though we're not paying out with cash.
Well, they say it's coming from the Gulf Coalition, whatever that is.
Yeah.
It'll come out of your pocket. Trust me when I tell you it's coming out of your pocket. There'll be American contractors over there, just like they are in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
They destroy it, and then they bring in military contractors and contractors aligned with the U.S. government to fix it, and you pay for it. It's that simple. It's just how it works. So
the major unresolved issues, I'll just throw these out real quick. There's 4. It says the nuclear program is the core sticking point. That's not resolved. Lebanon and Israel, like we just talked about, is a big problem. Enforcement and trust. So fragile history of violations. And then the 4th is the sanctions and assets. Timing and conditions disputed. U.S. wants compliance first, and Iran pushes for quicker relief. So it doesn't sound like they're on the same page.
This is a ruse.
Yeah, and no one has produced any text of a.
How would you even know who the leader is? Let's use a little common sense here. I was talking with my son about this last night. How in the world would you know who's leading Iran? Just think about it out loud, right? Think about it to yourself. You're a smart person out there if you're listening, right? You're bombing a country where you said you've taken out 3 layers of their leadership. How do you know who's in charge? I mean, if we killed everybody in Washington, D.C., can Robb just start calling the people that attacked us and say, I'm in charge now? I've decided I'm in charge. No. My neighbor's in charge. No, the taxi driver's in charge. No, the governor of California is in charge. No, the secretary of state in Wisconsin's in charge. How in the world would you know who's in charge? Just think for a second. Our country does not think anymore. They take the rhetoric, they believe it, they don't analyze it, they don't think through it. How in the world would you know who is in charge of Iran when our own government is saying they've taken out 3 layers of Iranian leadership and killed 55 people that were running the government? How do you know who's in charge?
And we destroyed all their bombs. They have no more weapons. All their ships have been destroyed.
It's depressing for me as an American citizen, because
I feel like their military has been destroyed 3 times now, Rob.
Yeah. I'd like to think that my country can think for itself, but I'm not so sure that the propaganda doesn't just zap your ability to think right out of your mind. But anyway, I think they will. I think they'll just tamper it down. So whatever's going on over there, you're not going to know about it. They're getting too much pushback from people like me, podcasters, people that are anti-Israeli U.S. relations, and that is growing and growing and growing and growing. So they just have to change the narrative. That's all. They're going to change the narrative on you, make sure everything's okay, and we'll have no idea what's going on because the Smith Modernization Act makes sure that we don't know what's going on. So just take it for what it is. Okay, just realize that you don't know anything at all. No matter what they tell you, you have absolutely no clue whatsoever in the world what is going on in Iran. You can't possibly know because our government is a criminal mafia. All right, let's play this, though, because I love it. It just shows you where everything is at with Trump and the administration and how things work. Clip number 2, this is Donald Trump giving a press conference, a little press conference, where he's talking about Syria, Israel, and Hezbollah. And let's just carve this up for a minute, if you don't mind.
It can, and, I consider that the minor war, the Iran's a big one, but we have that a little pinprick out there that constantly rears its head. And that's Hezbollah. And, I was very responsible for Syria, and the man that's running Syria now is a person that I put there along with President Erdogan and some others. He's done an amazing job of pulling it together. He's not a Boy Scout, but he's done an amazing job of pulling it together. And he is very good with Hezbollah, does not like them. And I'll tell you what, Israel's fighting Hezbollah too long, and too many people are being killed. And you don't have to knock down an apartment house every time you're looking for somebody, because there are a lot of people in those apartment houses, and they're not all Hezbollah, that I can tell you. and I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah. Because to be honest with you, I think they do a better job of doing it. And I didn't like Syria. I didn't like where 2 hours before we're signing the agreement that there was an attack in Lebanon, in Beirut. It was right in, it wasn't like in the southern side, and it was in Beirut. I did not like that. I let them know that. I didn't like it, not at all. But I think that Syria, he's pulled that country together amazingly quickly. He's very capable. And he's been very good for me. He's done everything that I've asked. And if Israel can't do the job without killing everyone else, he'll do the job. Syria will do the job.
Are you frustrated with next?
It's just so great. Just the level of theatrics is so fantastic. And I hate to be, I'm not a black pill type guy. I'm not. It's just not my nature. I'm a pretty positive person all the time. I like to be happy and I like to be optimistic about what goes on in life. And I don't know where our country's going, and nor do you. That's the scary part. Let me just break down what Donald Trump said there. All right. Number one, he's saying that he, along with Erdogan of Turkey, put the leader of Syria in position. Do we know who the leader of Syria is, Isaiah? Do we know where he comes from?
No.
He comes from ISIS. He was an ISIS leader.
It's not a Boy Scout.
He's not a Boy Scout, he says. So Donald Trump ran on the idea, and many did, that Hillary Clinton and the Clintons were aligned with ISIS. They created ISIS. The Clintons created ISIS. Do we remember those conversations back in the day? And then Donald Trump, in a press conference, now because he knows that the American people don't know what day of the week it is. It's Tuesday, by the way, but he knows the American people don't know their ass from a hole in the ground because they're so bombarded with propaganda. They forget the narrative from 2 weeks ago. What happened to the spy balloons? The aliens. Do we figure out the aliens yet, Isaiah? I'm sure that's coming any day now. We're going to get to the bottom of the aliens. All right. It's just, it's rhetoric and narratives for morons. And I don't mean morons in the sense that people aren't smart or intelligent, but they can't think anymore because their subconscious is filled with propaganda, and they can't make head nor tails of what's going on in their daily lives. So what do? They say, whatever. I mean, Rob, it's up to God. God wins. It's just, you don't have to do anything. Just sit back and let your country fall apart and everything's going to be great. You got the president of the United States who ran on the idea that Hillary Clinton was aligned with ISIS. And then in a press conference 10 years later says that he is the one that put an ISIS leader in charge of Syria, right? Nobody even notices that. He's the one that said, I put him there along with Erdogan, an ISIS leader that we were at war with, a terror war. He was chopping the heads off American citizens. Now he's in charge of Syria, and Donald Trump takes credit for it. You can't make it up. You really can't. It is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And then he goes on to say, and he implies that Israel is bombing apartment complexes to find one person.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think about that. Did he say that, Isaiah? Did we get to hear that? We are bombing, or according to Donald Trump, Israel is bombing apartment complexes. And he said, if you're looking for one person, basically, why are you bombing an apartment complex? There's a lot of innocent people in those apartment complexes. Did he not watch what went down in Gaza?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have to be a moron, because what this does, let me explain how I believe this works. There are many millions and millions of people in this country and around the world that want to love what Donald Trump does. And what they need is to, number one, feel that he's doing the right thing. And number two, be able to go out to their friends and explain to you how great of job he is doing. Okay. So when you see that, you go, see, he's in charge of Israel. He doesn't like that Israel's bombing Hezbollah and or bombing inside of Lebanon and going after Hezbollah and bombing.
He's not controlled by Israel.
Not controlled by Israel. He's a good guy. Look, he's upset that they're bombing apartment complexes. This is the same guy that with six months to a year ago was saying we have leveled Gaza and I'm going to build condominiums on their graves. Same person. It's just that when we say that he's bombing Gaza and killing innocent people and leveling an entire society, people go, but it's 5D chess, Rob. You don't understand the 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100,000 people that he slaughtered with American weapons through Israel in Gaza. And then we're going to build condominiums on top of it. And they said, well, who's going to run it? He said, we are. This is what Donald Trump said. We reported on it all along. We ignore that. And then he runs a press conference and says, hey, we don't like the fact that they're bombing this apartment complex in Lebanon, because if you're looking for one person, there's a lot of innocent people in the apartment complexes. It's just amazing. And then when I was going to bring up Doug Billings, and I think Doug, here's what I have to say. Doug and I'm the one that recommended Doug to Real Talk when I was there. So I like Doug. I respect Doug. And again, I think he's incredibly talented. When I listen to a show, I disagree with pretty much everything that comes out of his mouth, from a strategy standpoint, from a political standpoint. I just disagree with him completely. But he is somebody that is constantly defending Donald Trump and defending Israel. Well, now what do you say? When Donald Trump says exactly what we've been saying for months and months and months and months and months and months, he just said the same thing. Are you going to go out and say, well, Donald Trump is wrong? We should be bombing apartment complexes to find one person? What is your answer to that? That's what I want to know. I can't get people, because he says he has the most intellectually mature audience in radio. This is his thing. I like that, by the way. I think it's smart. The most intellectually, intellectually mature audience in radio. Well, be intellectually mature. If Rob Carter and people that are listening to Rob Carter agree with Donald Trump now, what do you say about what happened in Gaza? Just okay? It's okay to bomb people in Gaza and destroy their apartment complexes looking for one Hamas terrorist and destroy 1,000 people to find one. But now that Donald Trump says it's a bad thing to do, is Donald Trump wrong now? Does it make sense, Isaiah? Am I making sense? Because I'd like to have that intellectually mature conversation with Doug. Doug, if you want to, I'll do it on your show.
Like with Mark Levin.
Yeah, because I think
Mark Levin, loves President Trump. He's doing amazing. Look at our amazing president. And then yesterday he's crashing out, and freaking out about the peace deal. I can't believe this. He's betraying Israel, is what he says.
Here, this is so perfect right here. And I have not seen this name on here before. So Sherry, let me explain just from my point of view, Sherry, and I hope that you'll take it and think about it. It's confusing because it's supposed to be confusing. If you go back through history, when your society is being taken over, listen, we're in 2026. There's been a long history before we got to 2026. If you look back through history, when societies are being taken over, when you're being infiltrated from within, when whatever governing system you have that allows for freedom is being taken over, this is what goes down. It creates mass confusion amongst society, so you don't know what's going on. They give you bread and circus because they don't want you pissed. They don't want you thinking about what's going on in your country. They want you distracted. They want you confused. They want you dizzy. They want so much information shoved down your throat you can't make head nor tails of any of it, and you throw your hands up in the air and go, whatever will be, will be. That's what they want you to do. And it's sad, and it's real, and it's happening, and I don't know that we're going to be able to get out of it. I was texting back and forth with Ann Vandersteel this morning, and she said, when will America figure out what's going on? And I replied back, when it's too late. And she goes, that's what history tells us.
Yeah. That's what Massey was telling us too.
Yeah.
It's like, he's saying the only way to get out of the surveillance state, just as an example, is mass noncompliance. And then, and then he told us, even then, I don't know if that'll work.
Yeah. So Kathleen, who defends AI data centers is
I think Doug Billings potentially.
Does he really?
I'm imagine. Kathleen, let us know if that's who you're talking about. Is she talking about Doug or is she talking about Trump? Not sure.
Man, I hope that he's not. I don't know how anybody can. I don't know how anybody can support those. I just don't get it.
Yeah, had a great. So Sean Noel, Sean Noel.
Yeah.
He came to the St. Clair Board of Aldermen meeting last night.
Did he really?
Never had a commissioner. Never seen a commissioner at any city board meeting. But he was saying that that's something that he thinks is important, and if he's elected, that's something he's going to do is go around to the different cities' board meetings to stay involved. And we were talking about the data centers and just how a lot of people that are against the data centers, if there were certain things that were done, they would be okay with it. And he was telling me one of the things that a lot of people are okay with is if they just said, okay, if data centers come, they can only go to this heavy industrial area over here. That's not near anyone. That's, all these different things. But most people won't do that or they don't want to do it. In other cities, in other counties. So
it's very depressing. It's depressing because I can't. The problem I have, and I think this is where I've got myself into trouble, generally speaking, with the Missouri government, Isaiah, is I think that you have to be And I mean this with all due respect. I really do. This is a flaw in my personality, and I'm fully admitting that. I mean that sincerely. I think people have to be stupid not to see it the way we're seeing it. I do. I think you have to be dumb, but they're not dumb. They are either conditioned into a thought process that they will not challenge. There's something that goes on within the human psyche that they can't really think straight, or they're dumb. It's one of the two. But no society that was thinking clearly, that wasn't brainwashed, and I mean the subconscious mind being hijacked, would be pushing the idea of a complete surveillance state, a 1984 George Orwell style surveillance state for their own people. Nobody would do that. And yet that's what these people are arguing for. And I laid it out for Massey. I'll lay it out for anybody that's listening. Just think through it for a second. AI data centers to store all of your data, every stroke on your computer, every conversation on your phone. Then they've got your cars. Remember if we did what the Ford trucks can do? So you've got all these computers in your phone, so they can look at your facial movements. They can store conversations that you have within your own car. They have lights right up the street from my son. They have a big old flock camera. Right up, I mean, it's huge. So they're going to be able to tell you everywhere that you drive. Now, this is the ruse again. They're going to tell you it's for your own safety. And my buddy Gary was on here last night. He had a truck stolen from his business. He said, those flock camera systems, they were able to find my truck that was stolen off my lot. And I said, Gary, that's the whole point.
They didn't need flock cameras to track Tyler Robinson.
They didn't need flock cameras for that.
No, it's just people's ring cameras and surveillance cameras. I think that's good enough. You know what I mean?
Right. And Isaiah, think about it. If I wore a camera on the top of my head, if I walked around like this with a camera on top of my head, it would keep me from creating any crime, right?
Yeah. That's what they found in China.
That's what I'm saying. But does that align with my Fourth Amendment to a private life? No. And nor does the system that they're putting into place. And people don't feel it right now. That's the difference. And Isaiah, one of the things I think will really hurt people is they won't feel it because they're not in the political arena. That's why you won't feel it. And that's why a lot of people go, well, I'm not in politics. Why do I care? Well, you won't care because if you let's say you get an Adolf Hitler that rises to power in these stolen elections, right? And they put a madman in charge of the United States, or a Pol Pot or whoever, right? And they put a madman, a psychopath, in charge of your country. They have keys to all of that power, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. That's why you have to worry. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a madman. I'm not saying that Joe Biden was a madman. I'm not saying that any of these people were crazy or what have you. But it is your duty to make sure that that doesn't happen. That's why you're supposed to use your constitutional liberties and rights to push back against a tyrannical government. They are putting that system in place right now, and the people that run tech are going to have total surveillance capabilities of every move that you make from the time you're able to get onto a phone, onto a computer, or drive a car. They're going to be able to store it. That's the difference that people are not recognizing. They will be able to store that information. It's a crazy world that we're living in. I'm going to try and enjoy it as best that I can. But as somebody who wants to have grandkids someday, Isaiah, and I want to be in a free country. I went to meet this lady. She's in she owns an antique shop down in St. Louis. And I went and met with her yesterday when she's, I think, 70 years old. And we started talking about when we were kids. And the difference is I'm 56. So, right. So I would say at least 56. If you're 56 or older, you remember what it was like to leave your house and wander 5 or 6 miles from your house at age 9 or 10 years old. I did it all the time. People of my generation were able to roam the streets freely, and you can't do that anymore. You can't do it. If you're a 9-year-old and you wander 10 miles from your house right now and you get yourself in trouble, they're going to think your parents are derelict. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, 100%.
But in that era, we were free.
Yeah.
People took care of each other.
Yeah.
It's gone. And would you like it to come back? I would ask anybody that is 70 years old, do you think the life that you led in those days, with less money probably, maybe a little bit smaller house, but families were more connected? You had more freedom as a child to roam and understand life and recognize if you fell out of a tree and hurt yourself, maybe I shouldn't be climbing trees like that anymore. Or maybe if I ran out in the street and got or fell down on my bicycle, maybe I learned how to ride my bicycle better because I didn't want to get hurt. You learned pain and you learned how to get along. You learned how to protect yourself. You learned how to be independent. That's gone.
You got home when the porch lights turned on.
You got on with the porch lights turned on.
And something you were saying earlier about the data centers that I wanted to talk about is, was super interesting to me to be with so many local government, new government officials, and not all of them were brand new government officials at the conference, but I was talking with some of them about AI data centers and just the different legislation that's out there by different cities to do moratoriums while they look into different things or bans and stuff like that. And this is local government people, staffers, and then people that work with companies that work with governments that I was talking with. And they were like, well, Isaiah, there's all this disinformation from China that's coming out. There's all these ads and it's kind of, swaying people. And I asked them, all of them, I said, do you know how many data centers China has right now? And do you know how many data centers the US has? Not a single one of them knew.
400 and
not a single one of them knew, but they'll parrot, like we were talking about earlier, right? They'll parrot those talking points because they've heard it, but they did no research. They didn't look into anything. And when I told them, their faces dropped because they didn't know, and I did know. And they were like, well, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And
nobody really knows anything, Isaiah.
And then that kind of flipped the conversation to where like, well, maybe you're right. Maybe there is something we should do.
It's true. Bring in Chris Gleason, because I got to talk to Chris about these elections. I found him fascinating. So Chris Gleason is running for Senate in Florida, and we'll bring him on. I thought, Chris, what's going on, Chris?
Hey, how are you guys doing?
How you doing? But I want to wish you good luck on your senatorial run. But I've just got to pick your brain. We are into elections on this show. That's really how I started getting into. I come from the shoe business. I was in the shoe business until I was 53 years old, at an executive level. And when COVID hit, I was so frustrated because it shut down my business. It cost me my career. I had spent 2 years building a brand, and right as we were shipping shoes into the marketplace, COVID happened. It shut down my business. It destroyed everything in my life, and I was pissed off about it. Pissed off is the nicest thing I can say about it. And I want repercussion for it. I really do. I want people to go to prison for it. I'd like Dr. Fauci to be hung after a trial, of course, but I would like to see him hung from the highest tree after a trial. And all the people that were involved in it, I want to see some accountability in our government. So then I started paying attention to what was happening. And I said, these elections these morons that represent us in Washington, D.C., it can't be real. There's no way, like Lindsey Graham, who just got reelected. I'm just not buying it. He gets booed off the stage everywhere he goes, and then he wins the primaries easily. It doesn't make any sense. So we started paying attention to elections. We support a woman named Jen Olson in St. Charles County, who is once hand-counted paper ballots. She just wants to go back to something you can verify. And when you were talking, when we had lunch in Florida, you were talking about how the elections run. And it caught my attention because I agree with what you're finding out. So I just let's start there. Tell me what you learned about elections, just from scoop to nuts, how you see elections being run in this country and in the States, because you told me yesterday, there's not much difference between California and Florida outside of perception. Everybody thinks perception in Florida is that we have clean elections, and in California, it's a mess. You say maybe not. What's your take?
So based on the available evidence and data that I have personally reviewed, I can tell you unequivocally that Florida has not had a legally certified or legally administered election since at least 2008. And that's Florida. Essentially, what we have are selections, not elections. Mm-hmm. What we see nationwide is that the establishment Republicans and the establishment Democrats both rig the primaries against grassroots candidates. And then they install their selected people in the primaries. And then in the general, whatever deal gets cut or whoever cheats the best appears to win. And that is not congruent with a free, fair, honest, and transparent election. And so I think a lot of people, are upset nationwide. Arguably, election integrity was the number one thing on the ballot in 2024. I think that when the truth comes out and all of the facts come out and all of the data comes out, I think that people are going to be really mad. I think people like us who have been digging into this. The more and more we dig into it, the more and more stuff we find. And so in Florida, we're kind of at the point where they now make laws to hide the fraud and hide the corruption.
Right.
We're now starting to see that in California. Newsom passed some Newsom and his co-conspirators in California passed something now where they're going after whistleblowers and people who find corruption. I mean, what the heck is that, right? Mm-hmm. So they're doing the same thing in Florida. When we found things in the 2020, secret deals got cut. In 2022, we found more stuff. Some legislation had been passed prior to 2022 here in Florida. With the stuff that we found in 2022 in Florida, then DeSantis and his pals ended up passing what I coined the Election Fraud Legalization Act. It was called SB 7050. They essentially, because we had found how they were cheating to the precinct level here in Florida, and what they tried to do is change the reporting requirements by law. And as we continued to explore that and expose that, they then just said, well, we're not going to be reporting this, the blank ballot stuff that we found here in Florida and the ballot duplication data. They decided they were going to start hiding that. Mm-hmm. And they did that in 2024. Now, I was just out in LA. I was out in California. I was asked to go out there by Brock Pierce and a lot of Spencer Pratt's supporters. I was working with some statewide candidates. I was working with some local candidates within LA County, some federal candidates, and people out there really care. And so there's this whole false paradigm, right? That California's lost, that the people out there are idiots, and that they keep voting for stuff that's not good, and they deserve it. And I'm going to tell you right now what I saw out there. I mean, I talk to everybody when I'm out and about. I mean, I talk to absolutely everybody, but at the store, people at the airport, people on the street. I mean, I was interviewing people on the street, talking to them about cheating in elections. I was asking them about foreign money in elections. I was asking them about election corruption. And, everybody for the most part, I think there was like one person in LA that I was talking to inside of a CV. I think it was a Target, actually. And I was talking to this woman's boyfriend, and we were talking about elections and whether or not he thought that there was any cheating. And his girlfriend came over, and she's like, "Oh, we have no problems with the elections here in California." I'm like, "Really?" I go, "What makes you think that?" And she had a meltdown.
Right.
She stormed off. She couldn't tell me why they had good elections. I mean, when I was out there with a journalist. I was out there with some disenfranchised candidates. I was out there with a bunch of disenfranchised moms, a bunch of victims of the Palisade fires. And, I met a lot of great patriots out there, a lot of people on the street that I spoke to. Some of them, they gave up voting because they knew that the outcomes were pre-selected. And so, you have to ask when we're polling people, right? This was a big polling issue that we had uncovered in 2024. We had discovered that 93% of everybody that we polled thought that there should be no cheating in elections. And that holds true out there in LA. It really does. So, you have to ask what's really going on here. What kind of money is going on here? And, we saw a lot there with the labor unions. So you've got SEIU, and literally administering the elections in LA County. You've got postal worker unions, so you've got vote by mail ballot issues, serious vote by mail ballot issues in California. We also have serious vote by mail ballot issues here in Florida. The only difference that I saw in LA and in the county where I live is that they basically legalized the sending out of vote by mail ballots to everybody in LA. Whereas here in Florida, in Pinellas County, Florida, they do it anyways. They do it illegally. And then they alter the records and try to conceal it. And so what we see, right, wherever there's fraud, we see election officials not providing or not willing to provide the auditable records of the elections. And if you don't have an auditable record of the elections, well, then you don't have elections. You have selections. So LA.
Is that pretty much nationwide, Chris?
A lot of places. I mean, there are some look at, I'm not going to paint a wide brush because I can't, because it's just not true that everybody is doing this. Okay. I mean, there are great counties in Texas that I worked with, election administrators out there, and they promptly got me everything that I requested, like within a day. I mean, everything that I requested. And that was a great thing because it showed us that not all the election administrators are crooked. Some of them are actually doing their job.
Right.
But then you have these areas where we know that there's a lot of fraud because there are indicators, markers, if you will, flags. And wherever we see those markers, flags, indicators, they're the ones that always try to hide stuff from us. And so I'll give you a perfect example. So in Florida, we had discovered down in Lee County that there was a massive number of quote unquote blank ballots. And so my counterpart who had found them down in Lee County, she's like, Chris, you got to help me investigate this. And I said, okay, let's take a look at this. I'm like, what's a blank ballot? She's like, I don't know. We got to find out. And so come to find out, we did some digging and the government's own data showed us that a blank ballot is a ballot that someone went out and cast with not one single voting position filled in. And so we're like, well, who does that? That's crazy. And so my counterpart asked Tommy Doyle, he's the election administrator in Lee County, and he's like, he had a Freudian slip. And he said, oh, that's a disenfranchised voter. And it's kind of funny. So he, as we started digging around the state, we found counties with massive percentages of blank ballots. And then we figured out that there was an algorithm that they were using, and we were able to detect it at the precinct level, where you would have these clusters of you would have clusters of precincts to include vote by mail central count, where you would have matching percentages of blank ballots cast, 100% blank ballots cast, to the second, third, and fourth decimal points, despite the fact that there was different number of registered voters, different numbers of voter turnout. And so we, as we investigated this, we documented it. And when they tried to shut us down here in Florida with this stuff, because we kept peeling the onion, I ended up going to Maryland and finding a similar pattern there in a lot of the high fraud counties. And a lot of these high fraud counties would ultimately have a very high percentage and number of 100% blank ballot. And so we've been polling now, right? In addition to asking about the cheating, we asked people who would go out and cast a 100% blank ballot. People wouldn't do that. People who in their right mind, right, would take time out of their day and go and do that. And we found in some precincts, as high as 50% of all the ballots cast in a certain precinct were 100% blank.
Really?
100%. Yeah. I mean, Broward County, I think they were at one point, they were like 10%. for the entire county.
When Dade or Brown or Broward, and I went, how in the world? I said, I used to work down there. I said, that's the most liberal place on the planet. How are they voting for DeSantis, who's a hardcore conservative? Didn't make any sense. Did you notice that?
What's that? Well, Broward has always gone so Broward always goes Democrat, and they didn't go for DeSantis.
Which one did? Was it Dade? Didn't one of the two go for DeSantis? And
Miami-Dade did, and that was only after we put a lot of pressure on them and showed them where the fraud was. So what we know is that we discovered a lot of stuff after 2020, and we went to the Secretary of State, we went to the election crimes people, and we went to Ruby. We went to everybody, and in 2022. In time for DeSantis's election, mysteriously, some of these fraud issues got solved, and they were setting him up, for his 2024 run. Mm-hmm. And so to make him show that he was a viable candidate, where Trump lost all these counties, DeSantis suddenly won these counties. But all it was is that they stopped the fraud via certain mechanisms there,
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I was wondering that because when I saw that, I'm like, that seems kind of odd because they always lose Miami-Dade. I was thinking Broward or Miami-Dade. I couldn't remember which one, and then all of a sudden DeSantis won. I thought it was very strange. And I thought the same thing. I thought this is to make him look good for the presidential run.
Yeah. Now, what I will tell you, though, is Miami-Dade, really, they're a lot more conservative than people realize. I mean, here's the thing. You've got all these people, right, who escaped communism, who escaped third world tyranny, tin pot, banana dictatorships, and they don't want that. And so they tend to be very active. They tend to be very, very politically active, and they hate communists. They really hate them. So I think if we're able to clean some things up here in Florida, people are going to be absolutely blown away and shocked by what's going on here. And I intend to fully expose this in my race because I'm a statewide candidate with standing, and we're gonna hold their feet to the fire in every single county here in Florida. So
you got to tell me real fast, Chris. I got to ask you, give me the different methods they can use. You talk about blank ballots. Something that has always caught my attention is I watched when Donald Trump lost in 2020, and I say lost in quotation marks in 2020. They went around to all of the states, the swing states, and they went before the state legislators, and they started bringing their evidence to why they believe the elections were being stolen. You had the Sharpie controversy down there in Maricopa County. You had the stuffing the ballots down there and in Georgia, right? Then you had in Pennsylvania and in Detroit, Philadelphia and Detroit, they were talking about, and this is Trump's team, we're talking about how electronic voting systems change the outcome of the elections, and then they backfilled with ballots, right? So they change it through the algorithm, and then they backfill it with ballots. That was all the trucks coming into Detroit, if you remember that, all the ballots coming into Philadelphia. And I listened to that, and it made perfect sense to me as to how that would go down. Nobody's really addressed the electronic voting systems, and I don't understand that. I don't understand how people allow it, because as you said, the number one agenda item for Republicans in 2024 was voter integrity. Here you have both. I play a clip on my show all the time. In fact, I'll play it for you now if I haven't. Let me see here. I'm gonna play this for you real fast, Chris. Let me get this for you. So this is Obama in 2012. Listen to this.
If you want,
that's not it. Okay, hang on. I'll get it though. Oh, don't worry. Here it is. I'm sorry. Let's try this one.
It's not as if it's just Republicans who have monkeyed around with elections in the past. Sometimes Democrats have too. Well, I tell you what, it helps in Ohio that we got Democrats in charge of the machines.
Now, when I hear that, right, so you have Barack Obama, probably the most popular Democrat in my lifetime, the most popular Democrat that I've ever seen, telling an audience on live television that the Democrats have control of machines and that gives them an advantage. And then I listen to Donald Trump go around and say, well, his Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis go around saying that the electronic voting systems were complicit in the theft of the 2020 election. And then I say neither party, when they get in charge, do jack diddly shit about it. It aggravates me to no end. And I keep thinking to myself, is our country insane? You have both presidential both presidents in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party tell their audiences that machines have say so in our elections. And then when the parties get in charge, they don't do anything about it. In fact, I think it's mandated in some of these towns. I was talking to you last night. Sarah Huckabee, who we thought was one of the good ones, who's the governor of Arkansas, she went after a county that decided they wanted to count their votes by hand. She went after them. I mean, they legally went after these people because they wanted to count their votes, the paper ballots by hand. Have you seen anything in the electronic voting systems that would give you pause to go, wait a minute, something's going on around here? Dr. Shiva, I was on the phone with him yesterday. He's in court right now as we speak. He's in court right now. He says the tabulators take a screenshot basically of the or a printed or an image of the ballot, and they're supposed to protect them. They don't. And he said that's because they're changing the ballot. So if I go in and I vote through the tabulator and I run it in and it's for Trump, they can through algorithms and through technology, they can change it to Biden. And then they don't save it, so there's nothing you can do. So he's fighting that in court right now as we speak, talking about that. Have you seen how these electronic voting systems can change the outcome of elections? Is this something you believe? I don't know how anybody proves it.
I've 100% seen it. We uncovered that in Hillsborough County in the 2020 election. We saw it in the 18. We saw it in the 2022. It goes on. And what you'll see, I saw it in the audit logs in Georgia. I saw it in Texas. I've seen it everywhere. I mean, I did a debrief of somebody who had interviewed the Dominion whistleblowers from Serbia and from Serbia, Bosnia. And, I watched the video of the guy talk about it. And then I did a debrief of her, of the woman who went out there and interviewed them. And she was kind of incredulous sort of in 2020. And he said, no, just wait and you'll see in 2022. And he showed her in 2022, what ended up happening. And I have it all. I have her testimony on audio because I captured it myself. And she walked through the scenario. She said, and the guy, this whistleblower said that officials from the United States government had gone out there and told them what the outcomes needed to be. I mean, we saw ballot images being deleted in Georgia in the audit logs. I mean, I saw it. The first audit logs that I got in America were out of Georgia. There was one where, here's the thing. These machines are not accurate, okay? They are connected to the internet. They can 100% be compromised. We saw them being compromised. I had friends over at CENTCOM and SOCOM, and they were tracking packets on election night in 2020, and they saw packets going overseas. I mean, we don't have real functional elections. And since 2020, what's really happened? What's really been fixed? I would say not much. They have some window dressing here and there,
right.
But that's about it.
Yeah, Band-Aids on the gaping wound. What do you think of this, Chris, just from a hypothetical standpoint? Because I don't want to apply motives to people. We fight in St. Charles County because one of the guys that runs the elections out here, his name's Kurt Barr, and I've interviewed him a couple times. He'll fight you. He'll literally get into a fist fight over you because he wants to keep the machines.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you're a Republican and you watch what happened to Donald Trump, would you at least be a little bit worried that your elections could be compromised on machines? And are you trying to explain to us, Randy Fine from Florida said the same thing to me, just think of how many days and months it would take to count votes. I said, well, then have a state holiday, have a national holiday. But you have to make sure that citizens who vote, who have to pay taxes to this government, they want to make sure that the people they elect got there fairly, right? Because now you can hijack your government if you can steal elections. And I said, wouldn't you want to take care of that? They don't care at all. At zero, they fight you tooth and nail.
Well, they're the beneficiaries. They're the 7%. They're the 7% who don't want real elections because that's how I mean, the people who finance their campaigns via Act Blue and Win Red and Democracy Engine, the people, because we know a lot of those contributions are fake. We know that a lot of those are no good. I mean, I looked at the data in LA. Okay. You want to know something unbelievable, right? This is completely unbelievable. So as I'm there and I'm getting the tour of the facility, I'm asking the guy, one of the guys about ballots and about the undeliverables and their processes. And I was watching them do ballot adjudication. They're not letting people here in Florida watch the ballot adjudication. And we saw in Arizona and Kerry Rakeslay's, they have one person overseeing ballot adjudication. There was no second party there watching. Okay, that's a problem. But the bigger problem is LA County is arguably the largest county, okay, by population in the nation. Well, guess how many 100% blank ballots were cast in LA County?
I'm dying to know.
They didn't know what I was talking about. They had no idea what a 100% blank ballot was. And they looked at me incredulously saying people would actually cast a ballot and not color in any bubble.
And what is that, Chris? Is that because they're not voting the way these people like, so they just blank it all out? Is that what's happening? Because nobody's going in and filling out a blank ballot, just putting their name in a blank ballot, and that doesn't make any sense. So what's the story?
So what we see, right, is that they change the scan orientation point. They adjudicate the ballot as being 100% blank, and then they get to go back and they get to change stuff. And what we saw in Hillsborough County is we would see massive numbers of blank ballots, but then later on we would see within the audit logs, we would see 4 ballots cast with 3,284 votes. That's a lot of voting positions in 3 ballots, don't you think?
Right.
And we saw that at scale. I mean, massive scale.
Is there a last question for you? Because I'm fascinated. I love when I heard you speaking. I'm like, I got to get this guy on because this is right up my. This is the stuff that drives me crazy because I think it's the root cause of all of our problems. I think when you look around at society and you see all of the confusion, you see apathy. Now people just are like, I can't make any difference. I'm just throwing my hands up in the air and whatever happens, happens. God save me, kind of thing. And I keep thinking, well, if we could just control our elections, if people had confidence in elections, I could say, you know what, I would rather my neighbor be in office than some of these people that are billionaires that are running our society. I just want people in there that share my values and recognize that we need a free country and we got to take care of our elections. I want those people in charge for a little bit. And we'll just deal with it at that level. You can't do it. And as you said, it's done through the primaries. I agree with you 100%. That's where they really steal the elections, is in the primaries, because nobody really pays attention to them. It's only a handful of people that are voting in the primaries for the most part. And that's where you can steal it in many different ways, right, Chris? You could finance the Democrats and the Republicans that are on your team, right? That are going to be beholden to whatever your wishes are, right? You can steal it through the machines. You can steal it through the voter rolls. You can steal it on a whole host of ways to steal it. But shouldn't government be working their tails off to make sure that people have confidence in their elections? Wouldn't you think that would be normal? It's not. And the last question for you, because I know you agree with me, I can see by it on your face. What do you hear from voters? Voters, to me, when I go around and I talk to people, this is what I do every day. There's such an apathy right now in our country that just drives me absolutely insane. It's as though we are on cruise control. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Everything's going to be great. Don't worry about it, Rob. Donald Trump's in charge. The country always fixes itself before it implodes. And I'm like, well, not if you can't control your elections, because now you're ripe for communists to take over, fascists to take over, corporatism to take over. You're not controlling your own destiny. Therefore, you're not a free country. Nobody even seems to understand what I'm talking about. Do you see that? Or do you see maybe just a little bit of daylight where people are starting to think, okay, we're in trouble here. We got to fix this thing before it's too late. What's your take on just voters and the people you've talked to?
So shockingly, right? That was the statement you just made is not the consensus of the people of LA. And those, I mean, that's really eye-opening if you think about it. I mean, the homeless problem in LA, it's terrible. And so I was out there on Saturday, okay, and I was on Skid Row. I was there, and I was talking to the homeless people. I was talking to the ministries that go out there and minister to the homeless people. And we were at the Midnight Mission. We were on Skid Row, and overwhelmingly, and I asked them, "What do you think the problem is here? Why are there so many homeless people here? What's going on?" And they all said fentanyl. They said fentanyl is the big problem. Well, all the precursors to fentanyl come from China.
Yep.
China has played a massive role in the corruption of our elections. One, through the voting machines and the chipsets in the voting machines. Two, through the money. Okay, we know we've caught him. We tracked it. I mean, this scheme with the Chinese Communist Party, it started during the Clinton-Gore re-election campaign, and they got caught. And in exchange for Clinton getting reelected, Walmart got into China, American businesses got into China, which they then used to steal our IP. They've used our IP to create, they got our GPS technology, they got our missile technology, they got our supercomputing technology, and they've been robbing us blind ever since. And so, what happens? I mean, well, the Chinese Communist Party, they hold 51% interest in a lot of these corporations in China, right? I mean, here in Florida, we have unequivocally and irrefutably traced money from CCP controlled corporations into the campaigns of Ron DeSantis, Byron Donalds, Jay Collins, Ashley Moody, Rick Scott, and a whole lot more. I mean, this is not my findings. These are the government's own findings, that this company out of Tampa called iGas, okay, is de facto controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. And they fraudulently obtained PPP loans and use money from those loans to buy politicians. I mean, China's robbed.
It's funny you say that too, because I always look at that and I always say, because I was in China when COVID started, right? And so I've been paying attention to China for quite some time. And I always say, is it, because a lot of people, we talk about Israel and the United States a lot as well. And I always say, well, who's really at fault? Is it China for ripping off America, or is it America for allowing China to rip off America? Is Israel the problem, or is it America who's allowing Israel to do some of the things they're doing? Who is at fault? I always say it's our government. We have to take care of our own government. And I think some of these people like Rick Scott, who I think is a complete thief, I just don't understand how these people get away with it when it's so blatantly obvious. What is Rick Scott worth? $1 billion?
Well, you think about this, right? Rick Scott made his fortune defrauding the federal government.
It's
Medicaid,
incredible.
Medicare, TRICARE. Yes. It was the largest fine that the DOJ ever dropped on a healthcare company. It was like $1.7, $1.8 billion. Right. Okay. The company pled guilty to like 14 felonies. The company pled guilty to 14 felonies. And then later on, Rick Scott was being deposed on a separate matter, I believe. But he was asked a lot of questions about his role in HCA in the fraud. And he pled the fifth 75 times.
Yeah.
That's not something. I mean, we're seeing it in the depositions of the Act Blue executives right now, right?
And the Rick Scott goes from governor to Senate.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder. Yeah. I make the argument a lot of times that the more corrupt you are, the higher you go in government. And I think that bears itself out, because if you can defraud the government and to get, whether it's compromised or whatever the reasoning is, maybe it's just you have so much money now you can do what you need to do to get yourself out of trouble. But it seems the more you are a thief, the easier it is it's an easier path to the top of our political system. It's insane.
Well, the currency of politics is bribery and blackmail. And so, Rick Scott is able to bribe a lot of people because he's got a lot of the government's own money.
Yeah. And
I'm sure that he's got a fair amount of blackmail. I mean, I know that he played a role in having another candidate step into the arena in my race against Ashley Moody. There's a lot of shenanigans going on here. I mean, in Florida, right? They won't even, despite the fact that the Republican Party of Florida in January said that they were going to have debates, that they were going to coordinate for any statewide candidates.
Right.
They're refusing to let statewide candidates debate now. They want nothing to do with me debating Ashley Moody. They want nothing with a lot of these other statewide, like CFO, right? You got Blazing Goglia, who criminally laundered money from state campaigns into federal campaigns for Ron DeSantis. And he's running around, this two-time college dropout, right, with no accounting degree. He's running around telling everybody that he's auditing all of the counties. So we're saying, well, where are the audit reports, Blaze? There's no audit reports. What accounting methods did you use to do these audit, Blaze? He won't answer them. No. And so we do sunshine requests and they just ignore us. And
it's incredible. That's another thing, is the information flow. The things you think your government should have to respond to, they just don't respond to it. And there's no accountability. There's no AG to come in and save the day. There's no repercussions whatsoever. It's almost like a lawless government at this point, not just in Florida. I'm telling you, I check it out from all over the country. I have, when I was on the radio station, we had a nationwide audience. We have a nationwide audience here. And I get stories from government officials all around the country, and it's very similar everywhere. It's just, you can't get information. You can't get anything done. No matter how blatant the corruption is, nothing ever happens. It's depressing. It is. If you feel like you're almost trapped in this system. How is the GOP treating you down in Florida? I mean, are you got to be on? They can't possibly like what you got to say.
Oh no, I am the name that cannot be spoken, and that they won't even mention my name. But what they will do is they will take data that we've presented, and then they figure out other ways to cheat, or they figure out other ways to hide the fraud. And they do crazy things like yesterday we had some guy from the Attorney General's office call my wife and say that she spammed their office. And that it was a violation of Federal Can't Spam Act. And the guy, she works for a rather large company, and some accounts got assigned to her, and she did an email to the list that her predecessor had. And, they're threatening her over a single email to a single point of contact in the Attorney General's office, saying that it was spam, when it clearly wasn't, because they were in the database. They were being marketed to on an ongoing basis, and they're giving my wife a hard time. And it's like, wait a minute, you guys violate every election law that there is. I mean, we're talking mail fraud. We're talking wire fraud. We're talking, and I went to the state attorney general's office with direct, irrefutable evidence of Chinese communist money and election corruption. And we had tracked an address that we had identified as 100% was never going to get a vote by mail ballot, right? Through comparisons with USPS data. And what we did was we sent an affidavit in a first-class envelope with a mail tracker. And so we did this to a bunch of addresses. And so we followed it through the mail stream. And mysteriously, right, this went out in November of last year. It went from Largo in Florida, went to Tampa. And then I went to Sarasota. Then I went back to Tampa, and it sat there for months, okay? And then when we were exposing that it was still sitting there in Tampa for months, it got moved to Fulton County, Georgia, of all places.
Oh.
Yeah. And so then as I made my criminal complaint to the state of Florida about this, the very next day, I had been tracking this thing for months now. The very next day, that tracker that was sitting at the USPS facility in Fulton County, Georgia, suddenly went dark.
Shocker.
And shocker. So now some people are a little skeptical. They're like, well, maybe the battery just went dead. And I'm like, well, the problem with that ultimately is that I had a control device in the batch that I opened and sent. And it's sitting on my desk right now. And guess what? The battery's just fine. it's got full power, a little bit less than full power, but it's still fine, and it's still responding. So, this is the Attorney General's office, right? So why aren't they indicting people? I mean, clearly
they don't do anything. If you're in the Republican, and I assume the Democrats are the same way, we pay attention to the Republican Party in the state of Missouri and in Florida for that matter, because we run the show, right? So I look at myself as a conservative thinker, a libertarian conservative thinker, and I get a lot of heat thrown at me, Chris, because if I throw criticism at the Republican Party, they say that I'm, kind of a shill for the Democrats. I said, no. You guys are in charge. If the Democrats were in charge, we have a supermajority in Missouri. So everything that happens is liberal, and they keep telling us it's conservative. I'm like, well, maybe they switched parties like they did in the 60s, right? They switched, and now everything that's liberal is now conservative, and they try to shove that down your throat. I'm like, well, listen, the people voting for you and the people on your committees may be not so bright. I'm going to be nice, not so bright. But I'm a little understanding what conservatism is. I pay attention to politics, and what you're passing is liberal legislation. And then you're telling everybody that if you don't agree with the liberal legislation, then you're shilling for the Democrats. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen what the Republican Party in Missouri does. It's unbelievable to me. And I call them out and catch heat for it. But I think you got to do it, right? You gotta fight your own party sometimes. I mean, it just is what it is. If you're a citizen and you care about your country, sometimes it can't be Democrat. You got to say, listen, I got to clean my own house up. Do you see it that way? Because I know it's hard to do. I get
100%. So, I mean, I've been called. I've been told that I was working for Soros. I'm like, really? I'm like, no. I go after corruption where I find it. And honestly, the Republicans here in Florida have fought me harder than any Democrat anywhere in the country. And so, we have essentially a purple party, right? It's the same thing. I mean, there's a reason why the Congress and the Senate have like a 12% approval rating.
Right.
And, there's no way that these clowns keep getting reelected because so, I mean, look at what we saw with Lindsey Graham, right? We saw the machines flipping the votes, vote by mail fraud. I mean, in Massey's race, a guy who's been massively popular all of a sudden isn't massively popular.
Right. And
we see foreign money pouring in. That company, iGas, that I was telling you about here in Florida, they plowed money into Massey's, into PACs against Massey. I mean, so
he said to me, he goes, they work together. It's a one-party system. I asked him, I interviewed him just recently, and I said, I believe it's theater. I believe most of what I see in DC is theater. I've been watching it for too long. And I said, with an observant eye and no dog in the fight, right? Sometimes you got to say, listen, I'm just going to watch it. I'm not going to have a rooting interest. I'm just going to watch what happens. I said, do you think this is theater and really the corporations run the show and the Democrats and the Republicans are really just kind of posturing for TV time? And he looked at me and he goes, Rob, 99% of what happens in Washington, D.C. is scripted in advance. And I said, okay, good. This is kind of what I've been recognizing as well. Chris, where do people find you, man? I want to make sure that we take care of you. Where do people find you? And I'll get in touch with where are you out of? What part of Florida are you living in?
I live in Pinellas County, Florida, and people can reach me at voteforgleason.com, or they can find me on X. Yep, there we go. Yep, voteforgleason.com. I'm not taking Chinese communist money. I'm not taking Act Blue, Win Red, Smurf money, Uniparty money. I'm not taking pharmaceutical company money. I'm not taking big tech money. So I need grassroots to help us out, to help us get the message out there. You can follow me on immutabletruthelections.substack. You can follow me on voteforgleason.substack. But there's a lot of great intel that I drop constantly. If you want to have a good understanding of what's really going on in our elections, definitely follow my work. I'm on X as Immutable Christ. And, just follow my work. I promise your people that they will not be disappointed, especially in light of this season and what we're finding in LA and California and in Florida.
I'll do this. I'll reach out to you after the show today and get all your information. I'm going to follow it because I'm fascinated by what goes on. I'm fascinated by well, you're saying that people are starting to care. I talk to too many people that just kind of throw their hands up, and it makes me nuts. I'm like, man, you got a free society. We have a great country, have a historic country, a very powerful country where, you should be fighting just like just like the founding fathers, just like all these people that fought in World War I and World War II, fought for our freedoms. Don't give up now, because now the war is between the ears, right? Now's the war just to deceive everybody all the time into believing that this is what they want. And I just think you got to fight back against it. I appreciate your bravery, man, because I know Florida is dirty, boy. I tell you what, you think Missouri is dirty, Florida is very similar. And to speak out against that machine takes some balls, if you understand what I'm saying. So I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for giving us a voice here. A lot of people won't cover this, yeah, but I appreciate it. I really do.
I'll get in touch with you after the show today. Give me all of the information of where to find you. I'll read it and I'll promote it, and I'll make sure that our audience is paying attention.
All right. Thank you much, sir.
You got it. Chris Gleason, everybody have a great day, sir.
Bye-bye.
All right. Isaiah, it's everywhere you look. I think I should bring somebody in from every state to talk about election integrity, because it's the same story everywhere you go, and nobody will recognize it.
I love this on his his cover photo on X right here. The priorities, I guess, is the Department of Justice priorities, right? Number 2, he's pointing at number 2 and number 4, protect the U.S. against foreign intelligence, espionage, and cyber operations. Number 4 is combat public corruption at all levels.
Yeah, when I heard him speak, it was funny because I went down there, and I was going down there with Ann Vandersteel. She invited me. She said, "Rob, you should come down." I said, "I'll be there," right? Because it was in Central Florida, so it was only about 2 hours from my home. So I went down there, and it was really for Paul Renner. He was the Speaker of the House of Florida. He's now running for governor. She's a big fan of his. She thinks that he has the knowledge to maneuver the system in the right direction. She's just a big fan. So I really went down there to see Ann and to see Paul Renner speak. And Paul was fine. I mean, I like Paul. But when Chris spoke, I'm like, wait a minute here. This is a guy, I didn't know anything about him, right? He's running for Senate down in Florida. And I started listening to him. I'm like, well, this is the same stuff I'm hearing everywhere. It's nice to hear it. And he collects the data. We were sitting at lunch. We went to lunch after this kind of campaign kickoff for Paul Renner, and had lunch with Ann Vandersteel, her husband, Chris, and some power players in Republican politics in Florida. And he said, "Rob, I have the data. It's irrefutable. I laid out for everybody. It's not real complicated. The elections are being manipulated and rigged all over, all over Florida, all over, probably all over the country." And I said, "You have the data?" He said, "I have the data. There's not really a doubt as to what's going on. It's whether I can get it in the right hands to get something done." And I said, "Wow, that's interesting, because that's how I see it. The biggest problem is you can't get anything done. You can point out the corruption." I was watching this who is this woman right here? And I'm only for right. Truth, Rob, they are calling me a Democrat right now, right? This seems to be, and this is why I'm starting to pay attention to some of these so-called grassroots conservative organizations in the state of Missouri. I know who I am. Right, Isaiah, you and I know who we are. We don't like corruption. We don't like people taking advantage of voters. We don't like high taxes. We don't like open borders. We don't like propaganda shoved down the throats of Missouri citizens, Florida citizens, American citizens. But if you start to speak out against the Republican Party, what I'm starting to notice is there's a handful of people in these grassroots organizations that go out onto my social media feed and respond to me on Facebook and Twitter and try to paint me as though I'm some kind of leftist lunatic, Isaiah.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what they're calling me. I'm a leftist. I said a guy that watched Fox News for 20 years.
CCP.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Chinese are funding us. So is George Soros. Yep. We're getting big money from Qatar too.
Oh, this is another argument that they're making with me is that what was somebody saying to me? They were I can't remember who they were blaming it on. They were acting like I was getting some money to say what I say. And I was who was I talking to the other day? And I said, that is not possible with me. You have to. I was talking to my buddy Andy. I said, Andy, you couldn't. Do I want to make a lot of money? Isaiah, we all want to make a lot of money, right? I mean, if somebody hands me $1 million check and says, "Rob, I love you so much. Here's $1 million," I'm going to cash it, right? Yeah. But that is not that's not the focus of my world. That's not where. That's not why I do anything. I think I've told that story before, Isaiah. That's when I learned how to get yourself into a hole is to sacrifice the things that you believe in, chasing money. When I was growing up in the shoe business, I started in the shoe business when I was 16 years old, and I got into a job where I could start making some money at 24. And, it was a strain on my family, because in order to make $350,000 a year, I was on the road for 150 to 200 days. And at the time, I thought, well, look how wonderful I am. I got the big house, I got the great car, I got the family, I got the whole thing. Look how wonderful I am. Look how successful I am. And at the same time, all that's going on, all I felt was stress and aggravation all the time, right? Because
Yeah.
you're busy,
Is the
right? You're
money worth
tired,
it?
you're
Is the
traveling,
money
you're on
yeah.
planes, and I'm thinking, well, look how great I am because I'm making all this money. But at the same time, I sacrificed time with my family. I sacrificed a lot chasing down money, and I said, you know what?
Mhm.
From now on, I'm going to do what God tells me to do. And if that leads me to money, great. If it doesn't, that's what God's will is. But I'm going to do what I think Rob Carter should be doing in the eyes of the Lord. Fair enough. Is that the way you look at it, Isaiah? So when
Yeah.
these people start to try to paint you as something that you're not, I get frustrated. I got my buddy Kevin Pittman, my welder, the greatest welder in Missouri, Kevin Pittman. He goes, Rob, ignore those people. And I said, I'm not ignoring them in the sense that I am, I'm ignoring them in the sense that it doesn't bother me, but I want to expose them because people who know what I'm about and know what I'm doing, they see those people for what they really are when I expose them for how they treat what we're doing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's not like we respond to every single critic or every single hater or anything,
I'm
but
not
when
crying in the
when you
corner.
choose to respond to one, it's for a purpose,
That's
right?
right. And I don't think people see that sometimes. They see it as whining, and I'm like, it's not whining. I just want people to understand what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
Yeah, you got the
Greatselling.com.
establishment Republicans calling us Democrats because we
That's my favorite.
question Amendment 5. I'm not so hardlined on Amendment 3 or 4. I mean, someone maybe can convince me, right? But I'm not as hardline on them as I am with Amendment 5.
Well, I think 4 is a little late, Isaiah.
Yeah.
Right. So Amendment 4 is just a little bit late. Just a little bit late with what you want to do with Amendment 4, right?
Yeah. And I'm not
you get all your shenanigans done, and then all of a sudden you're like, now after we got everything put into place, we got the data centers, we got the posts in the way, we got everything the way we want it.
That's
Now
what
we're
I'm
going to take your
saying.
ability as citizens to take control of your constitution. Now that we got marijuana for 75 pages and everybody's getting high all day long, now that we've got that in there, now we're going to take your rights away from you as citizens. Yeah, it's not that I don't necessarily agree with what they're talking about. I kind of understand what the point is, but it's just a little bit late is what I would tell them. Just a little bit late. I guess maybe what you want to do beforehand is maybe make heroin legal and then take the ability for the citizens to change their constitution.
Yeah, we want to be Seattle and San Francisco. That's what we
want to make sure that everybody is high all day long and we're selling marijuana to our kids. And then once we get that accomplished, then we'll take the ability of the citizens of Missouri to change their constitution.
And we'll get
we'll bring it in house.
We'll get we'll start distributing fentanyl, through the Suboxone clinics and heroin and
Suboxone. I didn't even know you knew that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Heroin. If people don't know, that's the
that's what's going on in California. That's what I learned when I lived in San Francisco is that they're just giving them legal heroin as a way to wean off of it. And these druggies are just fine with it because it's good enough for them. And it's
absolutely. Have you been out there when he talks about Skid Row? Have you seen that?
Oh yeah.
It's the most incredible. When I tell people that you can't imagine it, your ability to imagine how disgusting the surrounding areas of Los Angeles are. You can't believe it. So I had a buddy. I worked out in LA for a long time, but I would go in. It was in East LA, right? So I'd drive around the city. I'd get to our building and I'd go in. And all of a sudden during COVID, they had these. The guy that I worked for was a billionaire, so you can imagine the premises. They were spectacular. He had all kinds of shrubbery. It was just beautiful. You go through the gates, it was spectacular. But out in front of his street, you got these campers and trash because it was there was a railroad, railroad right across it, and just for about a mile, it's just filth and trash. So a guy named Kenny that I worked with, he goes, "You want to go have some lunch?" He goes, "I want to show you something." I said, "Sure." So he takes me down. He goes, "I want you to see LA. I want you to see what we see." Because he's not from that. He's from he was from the East Coast. He was from the upper Northeast, right? And he had moved to LA for the job. So I said, "Yeah, let's go check it out." So he drives me around LA, and you can't describe it to people.
Downtown too, right?
Downtown. I mean, they were sometimes a little bit afraid to even go downtown.
Well, right? Yeah, that was my surprise. To my surprise, I said, "What the heck? LA is dead downtown?
LA is dead."
I was like, "Whoa, this
downtown LA is completely dead." I mean, it's almost like ghost town.
Yeah.
But if you go to around the surrounding areas where the homeless are and the drug addicted, the amount of filth and just the amount of drug addiction is overwhelming. I mean, you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people in just the most disgusting crap on the streets, hypodermic needles everywhere. It's just the most amazing thing you'd ever want to see. And he took me to all the ins and outs of things that I would not have normally have seen. They're like, it's like a small. I can't even explain. It's too much to explain. You can't really explain it. There's so many people that are drug addicted living on the streets around the LA area that it's just, unless you see it, you couldn't imagine it. That's the way I would put it.
Yeah. That's how I felt about Seattle as well.
We're going to get likes and shares going, Isaiah.
Oh yeah, like and share. Like and share. But
Please,
Seattle, I
please,
was
please
walking
help us
to my office in Seattle at the headquarters of a software company that I worked for. And I had flown up there for, I don't know, we were doing some meetings or something.
Downtown Seattle?
Yeah, downtown Seattle.
No, I was in downtown Seattle all the time. That was Nordstrom's headquarters.
Yep. Oh, that's like it's like a business capital. People don't realize. A lot of people don't. You know,
and Seattle in the heyday was spectacular.
Oh yeah, it's so expensive now, and that's what we're really. I'm flying to Seattle, and I sit and I'm in business class, and I'm sitting next to an older lady and the middle-aged lady. And they're talking to me, oh, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I work for a software company going out to Seattle. What do you guys do? Oh, we run the biggest real estate company in Seattle. I was like, oh, that's super cool. And, you know, is it good? How's real estate in Seattle? And they're like, oh, it's great for us, terrible for people because the cheapest house is $1 million in the city of Seattle. I was like, what? I didn't know that. I thought, and they're like, yeah, did you know that Seattle's the most expensive place to live? I said, no, I thought that was San Francisco. And they're like, no, it's Seattle.
Really?
And,
I would have said San Francisco too.
Yeah. And so that was a surprise to me, but they said basically a broken down shack is $1 million in Seattle, which was a big surprise to me. And so I get to Seattle, I land, I get to my really nice hotel that they put me up in, right?
Downtown?
And in downtown. And I walk 2 blocks to my office. I wake up and it's, you know, gray in Seattle, gray and rainy, of course.
Usually, yeah.
And so walking there and it's a little wet and I'm walking quickly. I'm like, what the heck is this? And it's a park. I'm like, oh my gosh. And just a sea of tents, a sea. There's not a place.
What year were you there?
Oh man, this was 2019.
Okay.
Pre-COVID, right before COVID started.
That's about when I stopped going.
Yeah. And so 2019, a sea of tents, which I had experienced that in California, obviously, but I guess I just thought
you didn't see Seattle that way.
No, I didn't see Seattle that way. I think of it similarly to Silicon Valley, but at a higher level, I guess, because of Boeing and Microsoft and things like that. But I was like, oh, this is exactly like San Francisco.
Yeah.
Everywhere you walk, there's just crazy people strung out, yelling at you, maybe trying to assault you and stuff, right? It's like
I would not want to be a woman living in these cities. I really want. As a man, I guess you feel fine. You might get robbed or something, but you don't feel like.
Well, yeah, my buddy got robbed at gunpoint in San Francisco. Walk into our office, and it's not like it's a sketchy area.
Really?
Yeah. It's crazy. And he got robbed at gunpoint in 2016. So 10 years ago.
The only thing I ever had was when I was in New York, somebody tried to grab my backpack off my shoulder.
Really?
He's a young kid. He was like 15 or 16 years old, and he came running by and he just grabbed my backpack. And you know, as he grabbed it off my arm, it just happened to get lucky. My hand was there, and the strap hit my hand, and then I grabbed it, and I looked at him like I was gonna, you know, it was just a
hey, what do you think?
Kid that weighed 120 pounds, and I looked at him like, boy, you better get on with it. Just took, you know what I mean? Just took off. That's the only time anybody's ever tried to rob me. Yeah. My house got robbed twice when I was living over by the airport when I was a kid.
Wow.
Yeah, I kicked my doors down and took all the stuff out of it when I was a kid.
Oh my gosh.
Let me get this in. Is Rick Babbitts, is he on?
He is not.
Rick?
Got to do some advertisers though.
Let's do gracehauling.com.
Let's do it.
My man, Gary Schneider. Gracehauling.com. Gracehauling.com. Outstanding customer service. Again, all I say about Gary Schneider is he said, Rob, but for the grace of God, I would not have such a thriving business. And he does have a thriving business. I got to tell you, I'm sitting at the corner out in New Melly where he lives, where he does business. Like, I don't know if he lives out there. And we're having lunch, and we're sitting at the corner of this intersection. I'm telling you, Isaiah, it was the craziest thing ever. It must have been 20 people driving by. And every time they saw Gary, they're honking and waving. And it's because he's a great dude. It is. It's because he's a great guy, and great guys usually do great business. Outstanding customer service, competitive pricing. Again, if you're a commercial business in the St. Charles County area and you're not doing business with Grace Hauling, why? Why would you use anybody else? I don't even understand it. I've been around since 1998. And again, if you're a residential customer, Just think trash, anything trash or rubbish is gracehauling.com. Recyclables, yard waste. And when you're moving, it's always bulk pickup, right? That's when your washing machines and
That's what we did.
and these big items that you got to get rid of. It's gracehauling.com. Best in class, best in business, and a great guy, Gary and Karen Schneider. Gracehauling.com. Gracehauling.com. One more time for the people in back. Gracehauling.com.
Cleanest trucks in the business, in my opinion.
Just salt of the earth people. I mean, these are the kind of people we want to do business with. That's why I try to get everybody within our community to do business together. We're just beginning to test that out. I was going to have a meeting, Isaiah, when I was in town this time, and I just had a few people that I really wanted to be there that couldn't make it. So I'm going to reschedule that for probably late June, early July. And then what we'll do is we'll bring all of my friends that are in business, family members, friends, listeners, if they want to come, and we'll put a designated area. And the idea is to create an environment where we're promoting each other and doing business together. It is hard, Isaiah, to run a successful small business right now. I was with my friend down in downtown St. Louis, and he does restoration. And he was just telling me all the difficulty it is to get a business off the ground right now. It's just not easy, right? You got the big major corporate players that suck up all the advertising, and they're aligned with all of their insurance companies and the other big corporations, and they all work together. We have to do it as small business advocates. We have to keep our community working together. It's just a big deal to me. So I'll say it again. We'll get everybody together. We'll sit in a room. We'll exchange cards. We'll get to know each other a little bit, and we'll start to reference each other when we're trying to do business. And we'll keep this community, and we'll grow it, and and it'll help grow the show too, Isaiah. Right? So it'll help the show grow, and it'll help our advertisers thrive. Rocketcareers.com, ROCKIT careers.com. My man Mitch and my other good friend Brian. This is a nationwide business. If you're out of work, if you hate your job, rocketcareers.com. Rocket, ROCKIT careers.com. They'll take care of you. They'll help you prepare to get the job that you love. They'll help you change your life through better work environment. They are just the best in class and great people who love to do what they do. Rocket, ROCKIT careers.com. And again, this is for all the small to medium-sized businesses out there. If human resources does not do the job, if you just continue to get half-assed, not very exciting candidates for positions within your business, just turn to rocketcareers.com. They will take care of you. They've been around this game for a long, long time. They're great people. They love to do it. It's different than some of these big corporations, right, Isaiah, where they just hire off a resume and you got your job and nobody really cares whether you're successful or not. These guys look at it just a little bit different. They'll find the right candidate to fill positions in your business. They'll change the environment for you as you begin to select people for your company, because you got to remember, when people love doing their job, you have a better outcome. Rocketcareers.com, ROCKIT careers.com. My good friends Mitch and Brian, you can reach them at 636-778-2419, 636-778-2419, or you can check them out at Rocket, ROCKIT careers.com. And then
I'll say that having someone help you find the right job, I can tell you that 99% of people, whether you are experienced at, whether you have a lot of experience at your job or not, 99% of people don't know what to expect at their job because they don't ask the right questions when they're getting interviewed.
Right.
And someone like Mitch will help you walk through those process. That's what I did when I was running that organization, is that we would help people ask the right questions to basically peel back the layers to see, are they selling you a basket of goods that's not really, what it seems to be. And,
it's funny 'cause,
and that happens all the time when you're interviewing for jobs. And so
I'm thinking the shoe business, Isaiah, because back in the heyday of the shoe business, if you were out of work, there were 10 jobs available. This is in the late 90s when a Democrat was President Clinton. But in the late 90s in the shoe business, if you lost your job, you could find another job in 20 minutes. There was all kinds of jobs available. It's not quite the same way. So now what you get is the younger generation does not work in the same manner. I don't want to say they're lazier, but they don't work in the same manner as the older generation. The older
values are different. Values are different.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of young people want passive income, which means I don't have to do jack diddly ding dong and I'm going to get a paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the older generation was taught to work hard and be on time and be respectful and appreciate.
My mom told me, work hard and never ask for a raise. And I never got a raise until I asked for one.
You got to ask for a raise every now and again. You got to know your worth. I will say that.
Yeah.
You got to know your worth. You have
Yeah.
to understand what your value is,
Yeah.
and then work toward getting your value. But it's just a different environment. So if you have somebody who understands it, can help you with your business, you got to take advantage of it. Got to move over to Valvoline Express Care.
Oh, let's
A
do
good
it.
friend, Tony Clark. If you don't have that sticker in your window, how can we possibly be friends? Valvoline
Yeah.
Express Care. And I had a couple people send me
Not
pictures.
possible.
Yeah, I had a couple people send me pictures of the sticker in their window. Listen,
Oh, that's awesome.
Tony Clark has been so good to this show and so good to me. I know his wife is very involved in getting things done with our government. I don't want to say she's political, but she says, I want decent government. Tony wants decent government. That's all we're asking for out of the Republican Party. We just want you to speak to us, have conversations with us, hear us, and govern us better. Lower our taxes, take care of our streets, make sure that people are being heard in the Republican Party, Democrat Party, same thing. Valvoline-Express Care. You want to go there and get your coupons, but you're going to need an oil change. I assume most people aren't walking or riding a bike to work. You're going to have an oil change at some point. Support our advertisers that support the show. Valvoline Express Care. Let me tell you why they're best. Okay. This is why they're better. Quick, easy, efficient oil changes, right? You can take it to some of these places and spend 2 hours for an oil change. He is 15 minutes from bay to on your way. So if you value your time and you don't people trying to upsell you, it's Valvoline Express Care. Very simple. Valvoline Express Care, 15 minutes from bay to on your way. No appointments, no sales pressure, all Valvoline branded products, great people, great business. Valvoline Express Care. Again, check out Valvoline-expresscare.com. Valvoline-expresscare.com. You can get yourself some coupons and so forth. If you don't mind, Isaiah, put the locations up there because I didn't read them off. Let me give you the locations for Valvoline Express Care. There you go. Cape Girardeau, Missouri, Highland, Illinois, Troy, Illinois, Lee Ferry Road, Warrenton, Missouri, Mid Rivers Mall Drive, St. Peter's Parkway. Valvoline Express Care, our good friend Tony Clark. Take care of him when you need an oil change. It is Valvoline Express Care. All right. Let's just go to.
Should we do Rick Bavitz before he comes on?
You want to do Rick? I want Rick to do it.
Ah, okay.
Where is Rick?
I like that. Well, first I gotta read this. He asked me to read this before we bring him on.
Oh, is it a disclaimer?
Yep.
All right.
So I just got to read this. Carrington Financial
none of his advice. Can you sue him for his advice?
Yeah, exactly right. Carrington Financial is a solely owned financial planning practice. Investment advice is offered through J.W. Cole Advisors. Carrington Financial and J.W. Cole Advisors are unaffiliated entities. The opinions expressed by Rick Bavitz should not be constructed as specific investment, legal, or tax advice. All economic and performance information is historical and not indicative of future results. Investing may involve the risk of loss of principal. Any tax advice on this show is not intended to be used by any person for the purpose of avoiding U.S. federal or state tax penalties that may be imposed on such person, and each listener should seek advice from their tax advisor or legal counsel on topics that arise from the show. Rick Bavitz is not providing legal or tax advice. Nothing should be construed as a solicitation of an offer to buy securities. CRD number 6490328, Missouri State Insurance License number 8029768.
That's
now
thorough.
We can bring him on.
That is some thorough stuff right there.
Yeah.
Bring on Tricky
Bring
Rick
him on.
Bavitz. Where is he?
There he is.
There he is. What's going on, Rick?
How are you?
How you doing, buddy?
Comments off your face. Sorry.
Doing
There we
pretty
go.
good.
How's
Yeah.
life been treating you? He sits much lower than me. We got to figure out how to get you your screen down a little bit. I feel like I'm David Letterman looking down at you.
Oh, there we
Come on up to me.
go.
There you go. Now
There
we're
we
talking.
go.
Sometimes my camera is a 4K camera. It's supposed to actually zoom in and track me, but for some reason, every once in a while on your thing, it doesn't work.
Your skin is glowing. You look fantastic.
Thank you. I sit out in the sun about a half an hour to 45 minutes every day. I take in some rays.
Very nice. That's the deal. I tell everybody, if you just get sunshine on your skin, that's what changed my life in Florida a little bit, was getting out in the sunshine every day. And I just felt so much healthier when I get the vitamin D in my skin. So we got to talk finances today. Carrington Financial, your caring advisor, Rick Bavitz, 314-671-0525. Biblical principles with your money. And like I said, you've done great for me. So I just want to get into, and if anybody is listening that wants financial advice, if you want investment advice and so forth, put your questions up there. We'll get them to Rick. First one I've got, Rick, is what do you think is going on within the markets? A lot of people talk to me and want me to ask you questions. I say the same thing to everybody. Listen, I don't give stock advice. I don't know what Rick wants me to tell you. If you want his stock advice, call him. Don't go through me. I probably had, since I've been dealing with you, 25 people that say, hey, can you ask Rick this? I'm like, well, you ask him. Call him up. Get his advice. I don't want to ask him. You ask him. But what do you think about the markets? Because they've been soaring since Donald Trump has been president. I know that I always look at that and say, okay, bubble happening. Every time I see that, and I'm 56 years old, every time I've seen the stock market go like this over a long period of time, I'm nervous that there's going to be some kind of correction at some point. Do you see that in the future? How do you judge it? What do you see going on within the markets? Do you like the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Dow? Where do you put your money? How do you look at it? Is it all individual? These kind of questions are what I want to ask you. So kind of just start with an overview of the markets right now. What do you see happening? Do you sense people better be a little bit careful, or do you say just get as much money in the market as you can?
Yeah, I would never say get as much money in the market as you can. I would always kind of counsel people for sure on assessing their own risk tolerance. So that's extremely important to know, what your expectations of the market are, because if they're unrealistic, then you're going to be sorely disappointed. If you're thinking, you're going to earn 25 or 30%, which is maybe a shorter term average of some of the indexes. And, if you look at what people have been saying about the market, I've written a lot about the market itself. So some of the things that I've said more recently are actually on our website. So people can go there to the YourCaringAdvisor.com website. And there is a section where I have a blog. So you can see the articles. Those, believe it or not, I have to get those approved. So those have to go through a compliance department. And, forgive me for, the the long disclosure that was given to me, right? So, I'm going to probably record it so that you can play it faster or something. But in the end, the way that this works is really, it's super individual. And some people have no tolerance for losing, very small amounts of money. And then other people who, have, let's say, aggressive attitudes or even gambling sort of just sort of belief systems where they really just rolling the dice. And so in that context, I think that it's very, very much up to the individual. I couldn't give blanket statements to people over, this particular program or any other program that would kind of indicate what to do in that regard. But I can tell you that the market has been delivering, with the right allocations. If a person is aggressive, the market has been delivering over 30% for the last 11 or 12 months.
Is that why is that why you think people, because we always talk about the age discrepancies here, just I'll throw your political hat on. Is that why the boomer generation is so excited about Donald Trump? They really are. And I guess I would be too. If I was in retirement and my 401k was up 30%, I'd be real happy about life too. Do you think that's is some of the reason that he's so popular with the, people over the age of 65?
I would say it's not really just that group, but the baby boom generation is actually, like, I'm the last year, so that's 1964. So that's the trailing edge baby boomers, and then you have people older than me. I'm about midway through the year, so there's about 6 months of the people that are born in 1964 that are a little older than me. And so in that way, we look at that group and we say, yeah, anybody. I'll be honest. I think that the notion that somebody, let's say, wants to switch advisors to go from somebody that they're with now to someone else, or even to get a second opinion, which I encourage people to always get second opinions, no matter what's going on with your money. And I think especially when markets are hot in the way that they are right now. But when markets are hot, people don't want to mess with anything, and they think, oh, that's great. But in those times, it's easier to miss how inefficient your account might be, right? You could be having excessively high fees. I don't mean that it's someone's purposely overcharging somebody, but some of the ways that the financial system are structured, There are certain platforms that are just more expensive, and they don't need to be spending that much money to get the same result. In fact, if you spend less money and you're more efficient, you could even maybe take less risk, right? So the idea that a lot of the time what we see is a higher risk offsets a higher expense, inside of what we call cost of ownership. And so getting a second opinion when the markets are good is actually pretty, I think, the better way to go. When markets are bad, everybody turns around and does second opinions because they don't want to really lose that money, and they think maybe that's going to be the a way to solve that for them. Markets are markets; they ebb and flow. But in this case, I think that risk is extremely important to understand. That there is actually a questionnaire on our website as well that will assess the capacity and the disposition of the person who's taking the quiz. It's 30 questions, 33 questions or so, and it gives us a really good understanding of who you are, and it actually bypasses some of your let's say your outer defense mechanisms in terms of like ways to answer questions. We're able to get some answers that lead to understanding you a little bit better. They're not trick questions, but they are designed to mask like what we're really trying to find out about a person's risk tolerance and capacity. So you understand is if I had a certain amount of money, let's just say a round number is $1 million, and how much money could I afford to lose and still be okay? Like it wouldn't disrupt my lifestyle or my future goals, right? And a person might say I could lose 30% of that money potentially, and it wouldn't do any of those things. But then there's the disposition side, which is how would it make you feel to lose $300,000, right? And that could be different for somebody who has 300,000 or 150,000 or $1 million or even $5 million. Losing $1.5 million, right? That's the same 30%. Some people might be okay with that, believe it or not, and then other people would be on the floor, like in a fetal position after something like
That'd be
that
me.
would happen. Right. So I know certainly so everybody's different, and I think most important, and this goes for other advisors that are out there who might be listening to the show, not just me, that can provide really good advice for people or whatever it is. I mean, I really care about my clients. For the most part, I become friends with clients because I'm a fiduciary. It really is founded on the core idea of a relationship, and in that relationship, my highest duty is loyalty, and then this idea of prudence. So I have to take really good care of the person that I'm the most loyal to, and so fiduciary is not the most common way. It's very, very quite the minority of advisors. So I encourage people that if it's not me, then find somebody like me that would be able to do the same thing for you, that would, and you would believe that that's really what's happening. Because I think that nowadays with all the things we see, not just in politics, we see it so much now, and the show has a lot to do with that. But we also see it in markets and with finance very heavily. This idea of lost trust. And if we lose trust in our major institutions, including finance, where are we going to be as a society? I mean, we have to have that, and I think that
Right.
the biblical principles and the things that drive me, have nothing to do with finance. I mean, literally, it's just the way I want to conduct my life. And then, I think that that's where the idea of being principled is so important, and no matter what a person is doing. If you can wrap whatever it is you're doing around your biblical principles, then it's easy to follow what SEC says or what FINRA says, or whatever types of things that a broker dealer or a fiduciary kind of arrangement would be asking of a person. And in that way, you're not having to try hard if you're already following a biblical lifestyle, and trying hard to just in a relational way with the people around you, with your family, and what are some of those principles? It's like truth is 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 at the very height of what we're all about as Christians, and is that really what's going on with most Christians? I don't know. I don't see it as much. I do see, obviously, in the world we're living in now, the idea of having this power that is greater than all of us, and to submit to that, right? To be submissive sounds like a bad word. To be obedient also sounds like a bad word, right? And I found that the submitting, right, is really, or submission is, I'm under the mission. Like the mission is up here, and I have to be under that and follow whatever that mission is, right? So God's mission for me, per se, might be different than someone else. And then the idea of obedience actually provides me with so much freedom in my life. The more obedient that I can be, I think that people just don't understand it in the way they frame it as some, maybe it's the way someone was raised, right? I was raised in kind of an intimidating, not that my dad was a mean person or whatever, but just the idea that he was very rigid, and I was kind of, I didn't have him around a lot. So when he did come around, it was like, whoa, too much for me. And
Right.
and I kind of got a little over that, but unfortunately, it was towards the end of his life, and even the reconciliation didn't actually occur with my dad till after he was gone, right? And I had to do that in a spiritual sense at his graveside, and things like that were very profound for me, and in the way that it changed how I saw life. And I think that having relations with our fathers and mothers, if we don't get those right, then we're going to have difficulty with all relationships. And so, even though that was from beyond the veil,
I've
having
talked to you about
a
that, Rick. I've talked with you about that before. I know that you wear your heart on your sleeve when it comes to dealing with people. You know what I mean? When you deal with customers, when you deal with people at just in the media business, you wear your heart on your sleeve a little bit. You take it hard when people are I don't even know what the word for it is, but when they're not kind, when they are accusatory, that you do. I've had several conversations with you over the years where it bothers you, and I like that about you because it says you got a heart, right? I want somebody managing my money that cares whether I'm successful or not. I want them to care. I don't want them to just be a number on a screen, which is the way it was for me prior to meeting you. We had our money, and I'll just be honest with you, I had money with Prudential. It was with somebody that I really trusted. He retired, and the guy that came after was a good dude. I had no problem with him, but I didn't have the feeling that he was living and dying with my finances. I want somebody to care because I'm not in a position to lose a lot of money. And I just know that when I talk to you, I can sense that, you're rooting for me. You want my finances to, go north, not south. But you got to tell me though, because I got to pin you. What do you think about these markets? What do you think is going to happen? Because that's what everybody asked me. They just keep seeing these markets go up and up and up, and they're like, "How long can this last?" And is there any indicators that things may slow, or there are indicators that people can look out for? Are there algorithms that can kind of predict where the markets are going? And how do you just wake up one day and it's 30% lower all of a sudden out of the blue? Because that's what people worry about that don't understand,
yeah,
right? That don't
it,
understand them.
yeah, and it is it feels like a winning streak in a casino or something, in
Right.
that sense, where someone's throwing the dice and they keep hitting a seven or whatever, and at some point the snake eyes are going to come up, and
That's right.
and I the markets aren't. I mean, I wish they were less like a casino. I mean, I do wish that there was less uh, uh, effects on the market that seem to be driven by these big, gigantic, what you might call a whale, and so if you've ever seen a school of orcas, they can, like, three or four of them can swim underneath a platform of ice, and then they go like this with their tail, and the sea lions fall off the ice into the water, right? And then they go and eat them.
Time to
And
chow.
it
Yeah.
right. So, that unfortunately, I mean, that's an analogy, of course, but markets are extremely high. There, when you have record. I mean, I'll just share my screen again if you want.
I've never seen
Uh,
anything like it, Rick. Have you seen a bull run like we have right now ever in the history of the markets? I've never seen anything like it. It's like every time I
Well,
wake up. I remember. Check this out. I just got as you're putting your screen up. I was sitting in a Walmart parking lot. I was in the shoe business, and
mhm.
this is how much of an impression it made on me. Remember Art Laffer? Art Laffer, who was with Reagan. He was the what was it? The Laffer curve. And I was listening on the radio, and I think the markets at the time, and this would have been around 2015, I guess, because Trump was running for president. So
Mhm.
it's what 11 years ago. And Art Laffer said, if Donald Trump becomes president and gets done what he wants to get done, he said, I see the markets could be within the first couple years of his administration could reach 30,000. Right. And I called my wife and I said, I'm listening to this Art Laffer, who I trusted at the time because I was a Ronald Reagan fan, and he was, he was running economic policy for Reagan. And he said he thought the markets could get to 30,000. I want to say the markets at the time were around 16 or 17. So for me, going, man, 17 to 30, and I had a lot of money in the stock market through 401ks at the time. I said, that's awesome. We got, because I was a Trump fan and I wanted him to be president anyway. So I'm like, man, if the markets go to 30,000, we're talking about being able to retire early. My wife made sure that didn't happen, FYI. But I'm just saying we could, the markets were going to go. So you're talking about 2015, 11 years ago, the markets were around 16, 17,000. What are they at now? They're at 51. Are they higher than that? The last I looked, it was 51.
Yeah, this is actually a graph that'll take you from
It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
1997, I believe I ran this.
Yeah, show me that. I got to see that.
Yeah, so can you see what's up here on the screen?
Look at that.
So yeah, you go back to the early 90s, and the reason that I have it here at that particular place is because that's first and foremost when I started, right?
Yep.
So sort of the middle to end of 1998 is when I became licensed, to start working in finance, and then obtained different designations and licenses since then. But what you have here is, this first little blip. I mean, it seems like a blip because it's so small compared to everything else, but that's the .com right there, right? And you go, wow, that was so big for people at the time. And of course, you can see the crash there was over a few years. It wasn't all in one year. And then you have, this down period,
What
and
year is that?
obviously,
What year are you pointing to right there, Rick? What is that? What year?
well, 2000 to
Yep.
2001. And then, well, really, it was 1998, 1999, and then 2000, right? There's the peak.
Yep.
And then you had,
9/11.
just you had 9/11 at the end of 2001, and then you have this cascade of decline. And then it declined over 3 years, almost 50% over 3 years. But then you had, and this is going to make some people laugh. Some people will go, "What is he talking about?" But right in 2003, when we invaded Afghanistan, it was March, I believe. Our military went over there, and what did they do? Principally, was they turned the poppy fields back on right away.
Huh?
And the Taliban was keeping the poppies from being grown. And sure enough, that's enough to warrant, a recovery from recession, or enough of an impact to get that cash flow coming back. And as we've talked about, how the drug trafficking trade provides liquidity in the market. So I mean, it's just a fact.
Isn't that
we can trace
crazy?
it. Yeah, it's totally crazy. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to say that correlates to what's happening in our stock market in a general way, but it is interesting that we saw a recovery right away. And you could also say, people look at wars and say, yeah, that's good for the economy, and that's really terrible when you think about if you're anti-war, which I have always been, right? So that's given me the perspective from different, I would call myself secular with respect to, I don't necessarily believe in this two-party system anymore. And so I kind of try to remove myself, and I look at the principled behavior of the different people. And I'll go through history too, as we've talked about many times, where I look at past presidents, past administrations, and I've looked at their behaviors, and I've said, okay, this is a person that I would have, I would say was good for Americans, and then I would say these other people maybe were bad for Americans, the individual person. And then I look at what happened to some of those people, and the people that really want to lift up the quality of life for average everyday Americans, um, those those executives get disrupted. And so as we look through, war economies produce a lot, but then what did we have through the after we after the 2000 the recovery 2003 and the recovery, we saw this recovery in the housing markets, right? It started really there. And we had a kind of a unique thing that started to occur, which was where we had what's called a mortgage-backed security, which is where you take a bunch of mortgages and you wrap them in a bond wrapper,
Tarp.
right? And you turn around and you sell those. Now you have to get a rating, and that was really probably the biggest problem with that a period of our economics, is that the ratings companies were either knowingly or unknowingly convinced to give a better rating to this what really would be junk, right? So
Wasn't that the
so
toxic asset relief program, TARP? Wasn't that when they bundled all those housing mortgages and sold them, and they were all
uh,
bad
I'd have to
investments?
check on that. I wouldn't be able to speak specifically to that particular law, but it fundamentally did change the way that the economics of things were happening, because those things were really what they were was bad paper,
Right.
and the people that owned the bad paper wanted to offload the bad paper. So what did they do? They changed the way that it looked. It's like they moved it into another kind of a vehicle and wrapped it, put a wrapper around it, calling it a bond. And really it was a mortgage-backed security is what that's called. And so that was basically given a rating, and then it was resold. And the person who was buying that, the investors who were buying that, weren't really aware that those loans weren't actually being serviced. They weren't being paid off. And so they were, or they were, maybe they didn't have the potential to have that consistency. And so the income would drop out of that. A bond, it basically is debt. And if you think about it, you buy that for a particular price and it's supposed to produce income. And so from that perspective, if you were the investor on the receiving end of that, that was your expectation, is I'm going to get some income from these 1,000, maybe it was 1,000 mortgages wrapped up in one investment vehicle. And you would be expecting that income to come in, and you would have other investors that would be expecting that. And that would be distributions. And then if you didn't like the investment, you would turn around and say, well, then I'd like to have a redemption. I'd like to get my money back. And at a certain point, there's not enough income to give people's money back. So then that's where it starts, right? And when you have one of those happen, and then the investors can't get their money, that spreads, right? And so that's what started to occur in 2000 and, let's say, 6 and 7. We started seeing the effects of that income, and those redemptions were being gated, they call it. And they would say, yeah, sorry, you can't get your money back, and I know you're expecting income of this amount, but we're going to have to cut it down to this amount just so that we can keep it fluid, like so that this investment doesn't fail. And then you get more, it just snowballs. So then more and more of those investors go, well, now I want my money back. Now that you've lowered the distribution amount that I was expecting higher, now I'm getting lower. Now I want my money back. And so all of a sudden it's a snowball effect. And they were hiding it, right? So in that way, it just started building. And you have a lot of people out there, and people can go to certain places. I'm going to say Bloomberg, even though it's a Wall Street mouthpiece, right? And so is Financial Times, and so is Reuters or Wall Street Journal. None of these are outlets that we might trust in certain ways. We've started to lose the trust in our reporting systems, in our media, but there's enough news now, particularly for the last year, but especially in this first quarter. We're a little past the first quarter, but we're seeing an acceleration almost every day you're going to see something in any of those places that's talking about how this looks kind of like, I mean, in a general way, they're like, this looks kind of like 2007, right? And you can see the monster that we're looking at. This is only until the beginning. This is the very end of 2025 here. So if I were to extend this,
It's going even higher.
it's gone up here, and estimating where is that? It's way up here. So when I start to look at the indicators, and there's other things that people want to understand, the stock market being really high. A lot of what's going on is also, you have to look what tells us the health of the stock market is actually the bond market. So a lot of the indicators come from the cost of the risk associated with borrowing money. And I would say that, and there are estimates, that people need to kind of understand that currently we have a similar kind of scenario, which is we have private equity and then we have private credit, and you have it's at least about the same, and proportionally at least to what it was over here in this period when it declined. Now you look at that market back in 2000, and this would be 2007 right there, you can see below, and you look at this decline and you're like, it seems so insignificant as to what a decline might look like from here, right? And I don't want people to be scared. I mean, I think that whatever, I mean, markets are going to come down. There is no question. It's what goes up must come down is not a saying or an old adage for no reason, right?
It's how much, right?
It's the effect, and it's also how long will it take, right? And is there a mechanized way for, let's say, somebody to unpack this so that it's not as painful as we've seen these things be in the past? I mean, 2008, I've been an advisor since before the .com, and what I noticed, and this is the part that I think is, people don't understand markets, and part of it is that they see this kind of a graph and they think up and down, and it is up and down, but what's driving the up and what's driving the down? And I want to kind of reorient people in a way. I have a big creek on my property here in Missouri, and and when you think of water, and I've been through a few flash floods since I've lived in Missouri now, and which is not a huge period of time, and we had a 60-year flood down in Dent County just a couple years ago, like 2 Novembers ago. There was a like 5 or 6 hour period where it rained 17 inches. And I mean, I have a huge creek that can rise 15, 18, 20 feet from where it is now. Right now it's totally dry. But if it started raining for 17 inches, it would be dangerous, right, for me to go into that water or try to cross it or whatever. And then just a few miles from me, there were some places where the water rose 30, 35 feet. And I've never even, there's one place, it's called Dry Creek, and I've never once seen water in that thing. My creek is full a good part of the year. It dries out at the end of the summer. And, so to give you some perspective, but that Dry Creek, I've never seen water in there. And when I drove over the bridge, which is something like 30 feet above the creek bed, the water was hitting the bottom of the bridge. And I was just like, I can't even believe it. And in some cases down in, some people know where Salem is, the people that were older than me, like in their 70s, and they're like, I was in high school and there was something like this. That's how long ago we had, that they've not seen that much water. And when you think of flow and you think of volume of water, right, you could have a lot of volume of water and it's not moving. Nothing's happening to it, right? It's not that dangerous. You could jump in and swim around. But when you start seeing the water move and you think of the velocity of that movement, that's what I want people to kind of understand about markets, is that it's the direction of the movement of the water. So is it And so I could just ask you, what do you think when you see markets, the graph going up? Do you think the flow is in or out? When we think of capital, right? Capital is flowing in or flowing out. It's going in. The flow is in. So, and that makes the graph go up, right? And so when you see the flow going out, we see that the numbers come down. And so that's why we're seeing.
What's driving it, Rick? What's driving these markets to go insane? I always think it's just big tech movement and a lot of people investing in AI, a lot of people investing in tech, and it's just driving the markets through the roof because everybody thinks there's a revolution going on through technology, so they want to be on the front end of it. So everybody's throwing their money into the markets, thinking, okay, we're onto something big. Is that what's happening? And is that real? You made mention that some of this AI data center stuff might not be as advertised. What's your take on all that?
Well, back to the first part of your question, which is back to flow, right? So there's definitely inflow. Is that coming from regular Americans? Is that coming from your average mom and pop? Is it coming from business owners? Is it coming from regular people who are just earning a living and investing in their 401ks? No, it's not. It's not like everybody gets excited about SpaceX and then goes, I'm selling everything in my 401k to buy some SpaceX. Well, they can't do that inside of a 401k typically. I mean, certain 401ks allow a pass through.
Is it hedge funds throwing it all in the money?
Well, it's a number of things. It's hedge funds, but what I want to go back a little further and understand that back when we were looking at 2007, that was money that wasn't real, right? And so when all that went downhill and the markets lost everything and we were recovering in the 2008, 9, 10, 11, I mean, how long did that last before we really saw the bottom? I'm going to say, I saw the real estate market not really recover until 2010, 11, things along those lines. And then they started looking like, do we want to have that kind of a thing happen anymore? No, we want to start offloading it into away from banking. And so this idea of private credit became kind of a thing back in those days after the crash of 2008. And private credit is kind of an interesting thing because it funds businesses, and we see how I have kind of a way for people to understand it a little bit more. But private credit is basically where you go to a bank and the bank says, we don't really look at you as having credit worthiness per se. There's no income, right? If you're gonna, and to your direct question about AI, I mean, are any of these companies actually producing income yet, right? So when you think of these AI companies, these are kind of the principal ones here. Are any of these companies, like OpenAI is kind of the tip of the spear? Okay, and for people that don't know, if you've ever used Chat GPT, that comes from OpenAI. So you have the other ones now where you have Grok, which is X, and then you have Claude, which these are all new sort of language models, but OpenAI is kind of the one that's at the very forefront, and they aren't producing really any substantial income. They can't really provide the income for the amount of investment that's going into that company. And so the question is, where does the money come from to continue giving money to OpenAI that isn't producing any income yet? So it's this notion of future income. This is the hope, is that OpenAI will produce some income someday. And that's not a very good fundamental way to produce any kind of real growth. That's a very faulty way in my view. I mean, other people might disagree with me, but if we really look at the fundamental way that an investment should work, if I see an investment property, let's call it an income property up in St. Louis somewhere, with a building of apartments or a commercial building that's got businesses, I'm going to assess whether or not that's a good investment based on the income that it's producing. and I'm going to say, okay, is it 6 times the income, 7 times? How much are they asking to sell that building to me? And 6 times gross income or 10 times gross. If it's a super hot area and all the businesses are flourishing, maybe they want more. And if it's half of it's empty, we're going to go, okay, is this on a decline? Are people even going to rent the empty spaces? And these are assessments that people make, and that's a really good way to understand what we're looking at here, because these companies, I mean, Oracle, it keeps losing. People keep selling the shares of Oracle, and if you look up the stock price for Oracle, which is loaning tremendous amounts of money over to OpenAI, and people are not having confidence in Oracle anymore. And so, some of what is going on here, I can't tell you what's going on behind the scenes, but we're starting to notice that the emperor doesn't have any clothes. And I don't know if that has anything to do with what Trump's doing or not, right? I have a suspicion, though, that there are some things going on here that are definitely not what we think is happening, right? And so if we go back to that graph, I actually have one right here. Just pull.
What do you think's happening? What's your gut feeling?
Well, if we just know that this graph stops at 2025, and I should have probably put in a fresh one, but I wasn't sure what you're going to ask me here. You got to understand that this flow of money that we talked about earlier, there's a massive amount of money flowing into the market, way more than the let's say there's 100 million people that have 401ks, right? It's not coming from those people. Now, there's some other weird things going on that I want to maybe point to, which is very strange that this is happening. And I've been on sort of the front lines of this, because I'm a fiduciary. But it's not just because I'm a fiduciary. I'm a fiduciary who's involved with other fiduciaries, and not just investment people. I'm involved with attorneys who are fiduciaries of big 401k plans, and they're the fiduciary to advise the employer how not to get into trouble, like how to protect the employees, right? And so a big 401k is a good place for people to understand how investments are supposed to be, like very highly regulated and very transparent. And when something is going to change, it has to be prudent, like in terms of the types of investments that an employer might put into a 401k so that their employees can invest their money in that 401k. The employer can't put in garbage into those 401ks. They're not allowed. And let's say an attorney who is a plan part of the plan sponsorship, where they're providing the liability protection in the sense that they're taking on the liability instead of the employer, and that's something that an investment advisor like myself can do, or an attorney can do, or the employer has to take on that liability. And they might have a board of people that advise them, but if they don't actually have a wrapper of fiduciary protection, then they're actually responsible. And so you have employers that get sued all year long, every year, for not protecting their employees with prudent investments. And so there's been this movement that's gone on with, and again, I don't want to get too complicated, but there's a very huge law that was put into place in 1974 called ERISA, where it's the employee retirement that is at stake here, where it's literally to protect employees. And it was put into place because of a failing pension system that happened. And so they did this law to protect employees going forward. So all of the stuff that we're talking about, where employees are concerned, has to do with ERISA. And you have a great amount of effort that's being made in the last several years to put private equity into people's 401ks. And private equity is where a company buys up a bunch of businesses, and then they hold on to them for a long period of time, hoping that those companies will become valuable. and then at a certain point they sell them, and then someone can take that company public or whatever, and you kind of understand just the basic fundamentals. I mean, SpaceX just went public, right? And so they had private equity, which is like shares of stock in a way, but you can't buy them until they go public. And you asked me a question the other day about that, right? And I kind of gave you the short answer, which is that, you know, if somebody's trying to sell you private shares of a company, be extremely concerned, that cautious, because that's not necessarily going to get you like that could be fake, right? And or it could be tokenized, where that private company, when they go public, they won't even recognize those shares that you were sold. And so you got to be super careful with making those types of investments. You need to go get advice from somebody who knows much more about it than yourself, and then you need to just make a decision for yourself. But at the same time, we've seen just at a certain point here, Anthropic put out a press release, unauthorized Anthropic stock shares and investment scams. So they actually put this out themselves and said, we will not honor these types of if you come to us and this is not a shares that you bought because we approved a sale of private shares, then and you got them from some recognized thing, then we're not going to recognize those shares. So you got to be very careful with those types of things. But understand, private equity is illiquid, so these businesses are being held for many years. Private credit is very similar. The money being borrowed to invest into something like OpenAI, as an example, or in other things, in some of this private equity, is illiquid. It's because it's funding things that potentially won't come to fruition for some years. And so if you were putting it into someone's retirement plan, we automatically, I mean, any of the fiduciaries that I spoke to in this regard, and we wrote together, we wrote several articles about this, and my opinion was at the time, this is dangerous for people who are in retirement plans. It's not prudent, and it doesn't take care of the person who's retiring and going to say, look, I'm going to want to get my money back from my 401k when I retire and use it to provide income for myself. And if there's something inside my 401k that I can't sell because it's not liquid, just as in a rudimentary way, people can understand that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. And so we were, I didn't know a single fiduciary that I spoke to, and there were dozens, that said, yeah, that's okay. We all kind of came out on the same side that said, no, you can't do that. But guess what? They went ahead and put it into those things anyway. And it's starting to show up in people's target date funds, which are, if they have a 401k, that's where you time it for a specific date where you might retire. If you work for a public agency like a city government, they have these trusts that they have instead of mutual funds that all of a sudden they're putting things in there. And so I just want people to be very cautious about, when they look at their 401k, they should be, cautious is probably not the right word. I want people to start looking at their investments inside their, their retirement accounts very carefully, and call up the person who is the plan fiduciary, or whoever the vendor is, whether it's, any one of the financial institutions that hold the 401k for that person. They should call those people up that manage that and ask them those questions. Is there any private equity in my, in my plan? Is there any kind of private credit, right? Because when we start to look back at the original thing we started talking about, which is, where does all this money come from? Where is this money coming from? Well, it's being borrowed. And so where is it being borrowed from? It's like, it's just, does money just appear magically?
Where is it being borrowed from? The government?
Well, we don't really know, because it's all opaque. So in other words, these private credit and private equity doesn't have to disclose the way that, let's say, a normal 401k or a normal brokerage account has to, or a mutual fund, for example, has to disclose and show you a prospectus. When you become public, like with SpaceX, This was the disclosure that they put out, right? And so they and you could read that. It's a couple hundred pages. There were some significant things that were in there that people might have wanted to know about, but there were also some things that I thought were a little bit strange. Kind of the couple days after. Let me find it here. Oh, there it is. So I just thought this is maybe for the people that have this kind of your head on a swivel and you're frosty, so you're very alert to what's going on. We look at this, and this is hard to read. I had a better copy, but I could not find it in the few minutes before the show. But this is available right online, and you can actually Google it. I could Google it right now, and you could see that this is. I've confirmed that this is the case. This was reported to the SEC as a registered filing, right? So, and the filing number's right there, 33-296-070. And what it says, you can see, Google is renting GPUs from SpaceX. How much are they renting those GPUs for? $920 million a month. So that's almost $1 billion a month for 33 months. And so this is like the day or two after the filing was on, like for IPO for SpaceX was June 3rd, I think, if I recall correctly. And then 2 days later, they make another filing that says that Google is going to pay SpaceX $1 billion a month to use 110,000 of their GPUs that are made by NVIDIA. And these are SpaceX's GPUs that are made by NVIDIA. Now you see these players here. You have SpaceX, you have NVIDIA, and you have Google. And Google's paying for something that, so think about this. They're renting. So they don't own these GPUs. They're going to just use them. And honestly, we don't know anything about those GPUs. We don't know how SpaceX acquired them so far. I mean, if we look further, maybe there will be people that will start looking at this, right? But think about it for a second. If now SpaceX can show $1 billion a month of income, and remember what I talked about with of having an income property. Income determines the value of the property, right?
Yep.
And now look at this, $1 billion, that's 33, if you look over the course of 3 years, it's $33 billion that's coming into SpaceX. SpaceX had kind of like a history of producing about 17 billion. That's not worth the 1.7 trillion, right? We think about all of the things going into that IPO. Those numbers don't match up either, right? They're saying that it's accounting for a $1.7 trillion value. That's not a value that's a value that is
doesn't even make any sense.
That's sentiment. That's basically purely sentiment. Like, oh, that's such a great company. I'm so excited that we're going to go to Mars. When are we going to go to Mars? Actually, do you think? I mean, 5 years from now, and will those astronauts even make it to Mars? They just recently closed. They just recently ended the mission. I can't remember the name of the mission, but NASA just ended a mission because why? They lost contact with the spacecraft or the Explorer craft. I can't remember if it was on the planet itself or if it was just circling, orbiting Mars, but they lost contact and they just said, okay, the mission is concluded. And what if there were guys on there or women, right? However long it takes to get to Mars. I mean, I haven't looked it up lately, but
did you ever see it was on that IMAX where they put the craft on Mars? You ever see that?
I didn't watch it. I probably saw I probably saw a.
I went to the science center with my daughter, and I kept thinking, because they're showing this like little bouncing thing bouncing around on Mars, and I kept thinking, well, where's the camera? How does the camera follow this thing that's bouncing around on Mars? I don't know that I trust anything anymore, is what I'm trying to say, right? And what does this tell me about the market?
Well, it's based on It's somebody's standing there with a bicycle pump. I mean, I'm just giving you real world ways of
Right.
picturing what's happening, right? A garden hose, whatever you want to say, and they're filling it up with. If we go back to the water analogy,
We only got
this
about we got just a couple more minutes because Isaiah is going to have to go. It's noon. I'm
yeah.
fascinated by this whole market thing because the MMTLP people got me into it, and I've been paying attention to the markets lately, and they have been screaming and yelling and screaming and yelling that the markets are being artificially pumped up and manipulated. And
Well, anybody who I just put this together as an illustration. People should take this information and investigate it for themselves. And again, this is not something that I want people to take and go, oh, I need to invest differently in some fashion from what I'm saying. I want you to get with your investment advisor, or if you don't have one, or if you're not confident in what they're going to tell you, get a second opinion. You could get a second opinion from me, and I will give you a wholeheartedly heartfelt thing that considers you first, and then how the money is going to work in your life. That's really how I look at it. It's like, this idea of all these things that are happening. I mean, there's opportunity here, and there's opportunity on the other side of what's happening too. So I don't want people to get disheartened, right? And I think that greed, people should go out and watch 3 movies. First of all, you should watch Margin Call, you should watch The Big Short, and then you should watch Too Big to Fail. And then you should also go and start to understand. There's a couple of documentaries too that I can't remember off the top of my head that will talk about that period, right? But those are movies, so there's going to be some dramatic, potentially embellishment, and I want people to just look at them with their eyes wide open with respect to that. But I do think that the basic gist of what those movies are trying to tell people is absolutely the case. We're going to see margin calls that are going to happen with some of this stuff. We have what we have here is private credit. We have J.P. Morgan and HSBC. HSBC, I mean, is a giant bank out of Hong Kong, right? And many of these could be tied to Dope Inc. and all the stuff we talked about, the money laundering that flows through, the Caribbean, and also from Asia through, up to the Crown and all that kind of stuff that we talked about before. But forget that for a second, and just understand that these companies are loaning vast amounts of money to these private credits, using these private credit companies. And some of the big ones are Apollo and Blackstone, BlackRock, is involved here. You've got all these big companies, right? And KKR have come to. Why are they all of a sudden? They're these names, aside from from BlackRock. Apollo is probably not something people on this show have heard of. Blackstone maybe, right? But KKR, have you ever heard of those guys? No. Carlyle. These are private credit companies that basically have. That Apollo is the biggest, like almost $1 trillion of credit, private credit. So they've loaned $1 trillion, and they've started to see things crack. J.P. Morgan told KKR, "We're cutting your credit line. We're no longer giving you any more money." KKR is rated, or if you look a little deeper, this is what I've read, right, and in multiple sources, that they're 131% debt to equity, meaning they have more debt than they do have equity. Some of these real estate investment trusts, Starwood, recently just gated their so this looks like 2007 now. Cliffwater is another one where they're being either cut off from their private credit funding, because what would happen is Starwood owns 600 properties worth about $23 billion, and they were essentially only $8 billion of the $23 billion of the value of that credit was actually equity. So they were upside down in like a whatever the math is on 23 billion versus I only have 8 billion in equity. They borrowed the rest, and now they're not able to keep up because those income properties are no longer producing either the mortgage or the income coming from those properties is not servicing the debt. The floating rates that because of the rise in interest rates, and this is, where we're starting to look a lot like, and sorry, Isaiah, I'm coming to a kind of cinch it together here so people can understand that if you don't have the income to support the debt that you've taken on, then at a certain point you have to cut off the investors from receiving their payouts, right? And then when that happens, those investors ask for their money back, sometimes one at a time. But then when they get cut off, then you have more people asking for their money back, and then it starts to snowball. And so these are legitimate things that anybody could look up any of these names on the internet, but I'm going to direct you to the Financial Times. These are sometimes paywalls. So Bloomberg is a paywall, Financial Times is a paywall, but I'm going to give you a little trick. You can go to archive.today and you can take a paywalled article and paste the URL for that paywalled article into archive.today, and it will let you read the whole thing. And then it'll save it for you, so you can go back to that if you want. And
Really?
so it's really a fantastic little trick that you can do. And so that's what I do. And then I do as PDF of the article, and I paste it into my massive, as you've told people, I have it's well over 5 million documents that I have in a database for myself, and it's growing all the time. It's probably about maybe a couple thousand videos that are in there that I have, plus other things. And so when you start to look at all of these things, I save everything I can. Sometimes I forget, but for the most part, anything that I can save for
You're an
future
information
reference,
hoarder.
I do. I'm an information hoarder, and I have the need for for memory.
I got
Right,
it.
my ever expanding memory. But the point that you guys want to see here is this is hedge funds over here on the left. Hedge funds supposedly liquid because that's supposedly stock, but are we seeing private credit and private equity bleeding into hedge funds? Because we're seeing it in 401ks, like I said earlier, right? And so I don't know if people saw that it was a video. It was only a little short video that had Larry Fink, and he was from BlackRock, and he was talking about how people in their pension funds and their 401ks were going to be investing in AI, whether they liked it or not. Do you remember seeing that?
I don't.
Okay, well, it's only I'll either send it to you or you can Google it, because it was astonishing that he was saying that in it was like 2 or 3 people that was talking to him. And he said that, and I got pretty obviously very disturbed by seeing him say that publicly. And I'm like, so what is he actually talking about? And a lot of people were commenting on there, and I'm sure now there's more comments, because people were like, how could he possibly take, like, they think of him taking my pension, taking my 401k, but I started thinking about it a little bit, and just like in my mind, I'm thinking, how could that work? Well, and again, this is theorizing. I want people to understand this is theorizing, and I don't want anybody to take this in a way that, like, is this actually happening? Because we don't know exactly. But if private credit and if private equity could be proliferating through people's investments, right, that they do every day, and maybe they were given a disclosure that said it was going to go in there, so maybe nobody's breaking the law or even breaking the trust of what they're supposed to be doing. But CalPERS, the largest pension in the country, actually has private credit and private equity inside. So if you think of, if any of that private equity and any of that private credit is investing in AI, which we were looking at before, and it's largely illiquid, could that potentially be what he was talking about? Right? That, yeah, we're going to get the money one way or the other, right? It's going to come from you in the end. And I don't, again, I'm reading into the broad thing that he said was pretty, in my mind, alarming, right? To say something like that. But he says a lot of really weird stuff. So I want to temper all of that. I want people to go and do anything rash, but where the markets are concerned, I'm just telling people that you need to be in high communication with your advisor. If you're not having good communication with your advisor, that's
Now's
not
the time, isn't it, Rick?
I'm not
I
going
think
to
it's
make it.
time. I'm looking at these markets and I'm thinking the same thing as you. Now's the time to be really on top of your money, especially if you're in retirement. Or
You got to pay attention. You got to maintain some perspective too. It's extremely important for people to not to jump to conclusions or any of those things, but really take the time. It's so super important. Most people, when I first encounter them, what they most need is some financial literacy counseling, like raising, and I provide that to all sorts of city, state, and even federal government agencies. So I've been doing financial literacy counseling to a large groups of people for many, many years, over almost 15, 16, 17 years, something like that. And so when we start to look at the average investor doesn't have the tools to really understand, and they should just get educated through their advisor. And if their advisor is not the person that's going to do that for them, then that might be a consideration on what kind of value is my advisor bringing to me. Is he growing my money? Okay, yes, check the box. Right now, isn't everybody's advisor growing the money? That's
Right.
kind of my always my argument. When the markets are going up, everyone's happy because everyone's money is growing.
You always say there's a way to make money, whether they're going up or down or sideways. There's always a way to make money.
Well, that is
Sorry to interrupt you guys. I just wanted to give you a heads up that I got to drop out.
Okay.
I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
I'll stay with you because I got to finish it up too. I got to do a couple things and finish it. Rick, I will see you. I'll see you soon, but I'll have you on next Tuesday. Where's your information? Here we go. Just want to make sure people know how to get a hold of you. 314-671-0525. Rick Babbitt's yourcaringadvisor.com. Rick, I'll call you a bit later on, brother.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Have a great day.
All right. You too. Take care. Thanks for having me on.
You got it, bud. I want to get two in, Isaiah, and then we'll cut it short. Can you go 1 minute? I lose Isaiah completely?
I think he jumped off.
He did?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me finish this then, because I got to get two in. Advancedwellness.com for all of your medical needs. You got to look at Dr. Helen Gelhot at advancedwellness.com. Dr. Helen, you can reach her at 314-567-0094. As she likes to say, they assist the divine healer. Feel, think, look better for all of your cancer treatment, for especially Alzheimer's, dementia. We had her on yesterday. Remember, it is advancedwellnessmed.com, the earliest cancer detection blood test available. We love Dr. Helen. So again, if you are suffering or anybody in your family is suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia, always think advancedwellnessmed.com. As we had her on yesterday, you might remember. And again, when it's time for lunch, it is Moe's Pizza. Get out to Moe's Pizza, a landmark in Washington, Missouri. Great pizza, great salad bar, delicious ice cream, sandwiches, and chicken wings. And remember, at Moe's, if you have any kind of gathering in the Washington, Missouri area, surrounding areas, birthday parties, anniversaries, political meetings, or Bible studies, it is Moe's Pizza. Moe's Pizza in Washington, Missouri, at the corner of Grand and 5th Street. God owns the place. He just works there. All right, everybody. We lost Isaiah, so we'll call it a day. We will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on the Robb Carter Show. We'll see you soon, everybody.